The following is brought to you by the Social Suplex Podcast Network.
This is Speedball Mike Bailey. You're listening to Keepin It Strong Style. Yes.
Yo, this is Rich Latta from One Nation Radio. This is brought to you by the Social Suplex Podcast Network. We present to you the Ace of Podcasts, Keepin It Strong Style. Let's go. It's the Ace of Podcasts, Keepin It Strong Style. Covering New Japan, they ready to hold it down. Jeremy Donovan and the young boy Josh. Come and hit a job out and bury all the frauds. From the Tokyo Dome over to the G1. Social Suplex is the network where we can get it done. I'ma chill and let them have it, cause this is just an intro. Keeping the strong style, 6 stars from the get-go, boy. Yeah, from Tampa Bay to the Tokyo Dome, this is Keeping It Strong Style with your hosts, Jeremy Donovan and the young boy Joshua Smith. And thank you for listening.
Welcome to Keeping It Strong Style, the Ace of Podcasts on the Social Suplex Podcast Network. Jeremy Donovan here with the young boy Josh Smith. On today's show, we will preview Destruction in Ryogoku and cover all its news in the world of New Japan Pro Wrestling. Please support our show by subscribing and following the Social Suplex Podcast Network or Keeping It Strong Style on the podcast app of your choice and leaving a rating and review. You can also get all the network's podcasts over at socialsuplex.com. Check out our Pro Wrestling Tees store, prowrestlingtees.com/social suplex. That's where you can get your official Keeping It Strong Style t-shirt. If you enjoy this podcast, please consider making a one-time or monthly donation by visiting socialsuplex.com/donate and clicking on the donate button under the Keeping It Strong Style logo. This week's episode is brought to you by the NJPW EXT, the only browser extension for NJPWworld.com. Frequently updated and with features like dark mode, improved translations and layouts, custom and share plus synchronized viewing parties, and much, much more. It takes NJPW World to the next level. You can visit njpwext.us today for details. Young boy, how you doing, man?
I hurt my back. I don't know what happened, but yeah, I fucked up my back this past weekend, and yeah, pain.
Hurt.
Old's down bad.
Just it kind of came out of nowhere.
It's probably my fault. I probably haven't been drinking enough water, and I've been working out a lot, and I sort of felt like some of the muscles tensing up, and I probably should have taken a break or done some stretching or plyo or some shit, but I didn't do it.
Just powered through.
Yeah, and then suddenly, like all of a sudden, like my whole back tensed up, and I was like, oh no. And it's been a few days, and like it's not necessarily gotten that much better. Hopefully it does in the next few days, so I don't know.
Man.
Yeah. But all in all, everything else is good. What's going on with you, man? I mean, busy, a crazy weekend. I mean, 2 big Road 2 shows, major Road 2 shows from Korakuen Hall.
Yeah, lots of stuff going down in New Japan this weekend. Yeah, very busy weekend. Also, that did to you, you passed your Series 63 exam, so congrats on that.
Yeah, I didn't broadcast that I was taking another licensing exam just because what if you fail,
Yeah, for people who don't know exactly what that is, so why don't you fill them in?
It just means I can sell shit. It's finance shit, but it's a hard test, and I passed it, and I got to take another one. I got a 65 coming up I'm aiming for by the end of the year. So if I end up taking off a few, a month in December, November, that's because I'm studying. It has nothing to do with the fact that World Tag League is occurring.
Sure, yeah. It just so happens to line up just the exact dates, November through like December 15th, whenever World Tag League ends.
Pretty much. So
you'll magically be free for Road to Tokyo Dome.
I'll probably be back in time to watch the snowfall in Korakuen.
Guess we'll need MJ this PR. Come on back. We'll need you for Tag League season.
Calling Karen.
Yep.
But yeah, no. Tough test. I'm waiting for them to send me my materials so I can start studying for the 65. But yeah, I was doing a little bit of reconnaissance, and I'm like, holy shit! Like the Series 65 test, which is the last one that I need to, basically advise at my firm. 300 questions. It's or maybe it's not 300 questions, but it's a 3-hour test, which like none of the tests I've taken have even been half that length. So yeah, it's pretty fucking daunting.
Bro, 3 hours, that's easy. You watch Corkins all the time. you put in 3 hours and stuff all the time. That should be cakewalk.
I mean, do I watch 3 hours, or do I watch 3-hour show at 2x 1.5? Do I watch an hour and a half of a Korakuen Hall show?
That's a problem. You need to build back up your endurance.
Yeah, I guess so.
Well, it is October 2nd, which means September is over. It's officially spooky season.
When September ends.
So it means we got to do Wrestler of the Month, Match of the Month. So, Josh, why don't you tell the listeners who we're going with for Wrestler of the Month?
Yeah, so me and Jeremy started looking, and although it's been a bit easier of a schedule, only 6 broadcast shows for New Japan in the month of September, kind of made for a weaker field for Wrestler of the Month. And at first, we were kind of looking at Will Ospreay or Tsuji because they were the obvious candidates based off of the fantastic main event that they had at Destruction in Kobe. But when we started looking at the totality of the month, what really became apparent was how consistent and victorious Zack Sabre Jr. was all throughout the month. He had 2 title defenses on subsequent nights back-to-back, defeating Ryohei Oiwa and then defeating Kojima. And then he was on the winning side in every single tag match that he was involved in during the month. And then finally, at that Destruction in Kobe show, he had a major pinfall victory over Tomohiro Ishii in the match where he teamed with Bad Dude Tito to take on the Chaos team of Ishii and Okada. So when you kind of look at the big wins he had and the meaningful singles matches, I think most months this wouldn't be enough to probably clinch Wrestler of the Month, but on this month, September 2023, I think he did enough to kind of overcome the classic that Tsuji and Ospreay put up. So your Wrestler of the Month, September 2023, Zack Sabre Jr.
And then the match of the month will be that aforementioned Will Ospreay versus Yota Tsuji for the IWGP UK title at Destruction in Kobe. Absolutely incredible match. Uncle Dave dropped 5 stars on it. So Tsuji getting his first
5 on it.
Tsuji getting his first Wrestling Observer newsletter 5-star matchup. Yeah, excellent main event. Kind of another star, making performance by Yota Tsuji. And of course, Will is always great. So if you have not watched that match yet, I don't know what you're doing. Go back, watch Ospreay and Tsuji from the main event of Destruction in Kobe.
Nice.
So we got 2 Road 2 shows, like you mentioned, this past weekend to go over the results of, and then we got to preview the big Destruction in Ryogoku show next Monday, October 9th in Sumo Hall. So let's start from the Road 2 shows. September 30th, Korakuen Hall show opened up. We had Hanare defeating Oscar Lube 8 minutes and 58 seconds. And we had a question from MJ Does PR. Says it feels like this current crop of young lions are the biggest size-wise we've seen in a while. What's your overall take on this group?
I don't know if this group is as easy to pin down in terms of like what I see their trajectory being, given the fact that Oscar as well as Oleg Boltin are both Gaijin, and they're, like European Gaijin that we've never really had that in the Noge Dojo before. And, both kind of coming from differing backgrounds where like Oscar, has a wealth of experience under his belt and is kind of traveled and seasoned already, older, but has, an extensive, Greco-Roman and freestyle background behind him. And so they're kind of just totally different animals than, we're used to being able to unpack. It's hard for me to say what the floor or the ceiling for them is. But I do think it's exciting and fresh and kind of unique because it's a differing opportunity for different types of competitors that we're not used to seeing.
Yeah, I think this has been a very fun crop of young lions to watch. I've said it before on the show, but I think Oscar Lube is definitely somebody to keep your eyes on. I know a lot of the focus right now is on Boltin Oleg and kind of the push he's been getting and the comparisons to like a Brock Lesnar and kind of his trajectory. But I think Oscar Lube has improved a lot. He's super tall. He's got good size. Like, to me, like we mentioned earlier on the show, like he needs to watch Walter/Gunther tapes and he'll have it made. He's already doing some of the big chops and he's running the rope. He's a big guy that can run the ropes. He's super agile and athletic. Like, I think there's a lot of stock to be bought in Oscar Lube.
Yeah. I think Oscar moves really well. I really like Oleg Boltin. I think if he's someone that can fall in love with the physicality and, kind of get a violent streak to him, and you combine that with his, technical prowess, I think we could be looking at something really special there.
Yeah, definitely.
And then I guess we're kind of also forgetting Yuto Nakashima, who is cultivating mass, and he's becoming a big bruiser. So that's also going to be interesting to see how that is going to play out.
Yeah, lots of interesting prospects in this class, and I know there's probably a ton of guys we haven't even seen yet in the Noge Dojo to come out. So yeah, very exciting time with the young lion system right now. So this was standard kind of opening match, experienced guy versus young lion Henare picking up the win here.
Henare did throw a spinning back fist at one point in the match, and Chris Charlton mentioned how there's a little bit of a call out to the current reigning strong openweight champion Eddie Kingston.
Yeah, that's kind of been an ongoing story for Henare, constantly calling out Eddie Kingston. Nothing back from Eddie Kingston, and there's the big Fighting Spirit Unleashed show coming up in Las Vegas the end of this month. And the match hasn't been made official yet, but Henare kind of keeps calling Kingston out, cutting promos on him, alluding to wanting the strong openweight championship. So I think once Eddie's defenses that are advertised are all done, I think they'll make it official, and it'll be Eddie versus Henare in Vegas. So next matchup here, we had Tomohiro Ishii and Yoshihashi, and Hiroshi Tanahashi defeating Oleg Boltin, Tiger Mask, and Yuto Nakashima 9 minutes and 31 seconds.
Yeah, Yoshihashi replaced an ill Yo going into this match.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, Yo got ill, out for the tour. Oleg's out for the ending part of this tour. But yeah, getting replaced here. And yeah, standard kind of multi-man match here with a young lion with some dads. Two young lions with a dad kind of thing here. So fun matchup. But of course, the team of Ishii, Tanahashi, and Yoshihashi get the win. And after this match, we had a pre-tape promo from the Motor City Machine Guns and the Walking Weapon, Josh Alexander, talking about the upcoming Never Six-Man title match. And they played that promo. Then Tanahashi grabbed the mic and he responded, looking forward to facing those guys at Ryogoku.
Yeah, Tanahashi said that he wants to be the one to get the win for his team against those guys on October 9th. So, looking forward to that one. After that, Henare joined commentary for the rest of the show.
Yeah, and I gotta say, Henare was great on commentary. He was cracking me up.
Yeah, he's good.
Yeah. So following that, we had the LIJ team of Bushi, Shingo, and Yota Tsuji defeating the United Empire team, Callum Newman, Great Okan, and Jeff Cobb, 12 minutes and 29 seconds.
Yeah, this kind of just continued the ongoing feud that we've seen between these two groups all throughout the tour, and they continued their string of very, fast-paced, fun, and entertaining multi-man tag team matches on the undercard.
Yeah, a lot of great sequences between Yota Tsuji and Callum Newman, and they're the last two guys towards the end of the match really mixing it up. And Tsuji got Callum in a Boston Crab and transitioned it into like a pendulum lucha swing and was able to get the submission victory over the Prince of Pace. So following that, we had the GOD team of El Phantasmo and Hikuleo teaming up with the intergalactic jet setters of Kevin Knight and Kushida to defeat the Bullet Club War Dogs of Alex Coughlin, Clark Connors, Drilla Maloney, and Gabe Kidd, 11 minutes and 19 seconds.
Continues the build between Kushida and Kevin Knight as they're being built up as challengers for Drilla Maloney and Clark Connors junior IWGP junior tag team titles, as well as the ongoing feud between Bullet Club and GOD.
Yeah, Kushida got the win with the inside cradle over Drilla Maloney. So Kevin Knight has pinned Clark Connors at the Junior Festival. Now Kushida has pinned Maloney. So Jet Setters are picking up a lot of momentum going into Ryogoku. So then following that, we had the rest of GOD of Jado, Tamatonga, and Tangaloa defeating the Bullet Club team of Chase Owens, David Finlay, and Gato, 13 minutes and 5 seconds.
Yep. Another preview match for the ongoing feud between GOD and Bullet Club, much like the match preceding it. And, on the horizon, we've got David Finlay poised to defend his never openweight title against Tamatonga, and the match that everyone is waiting for in Chase Owens versus Tangaloa.
Yeah, very heated, anticipated matchup. Tangaloa got the win here, putting the crossface on Gato. Gato tapping out immediately. So yeah, lots of stuff being built up here going into Ryogoku.
Now, aside from the post-match video package that we saw, most of the show had been road toing super hard up to this point, but we did actually get a match of note following this.
Yeah, so then we had match number 4 in the 6-man tag best of 7 series between Strong Style and Team Nagata. And Strong Style got the win here. El Desperado, Suzuki, and Ren Narita defeating Master Wato, Shota Umino, and Yuji Nagata. Kind of big thing about this match was Ren Narita finally getting a pinfall win over Shota Umino.
Yeah, a very, very hard-hitting, stiff, and violent affair here. So, we definitely started to kind of see where, in my opinion, Strong Style was sort of kind of dictating the pace and the style of match here, as opposed to the way that Team Nagata, while they like to mix it up as well, they weren't able to work their game plan quite the same way. They kind of got dragged into a brawl and, a firefight with a Strong Style, and they paid for it. Yeah,
and this match, I thought did a really good job. We had mentioned earlier at the beginning of the series, we hope that each match will tell a story. The first match did, and the second match did, and the third match didn't make tape. But with this match, they did kind of focus the story around Umino and Narita. And Narita fighting so hard to get that pinfall on Umino. Like you mentioned, very hard-hitting, Strong Style. Yeah, it was blitzing these guys, making them kind of fight their style of matchup. And yeah, then Umino was able to hit that Narita special number 2, get that beautiful bridge that he does on those suplexes and pin Umino.
Yeah, and if we're going by Inoki logic, this is basically Fujinami beating Inoki in that tag match in '85. He doesn't need to get a singles win after this. This is it. This is the best Narita can ever hope for when it comes to Shota Umino. He's never going to get a singles win over this man. He already put him over. That's it.
Yeah. Then semi-main event, we had the Just Four Guys team of Doki, Sanada, and Taka Michinoku defeating the House of Torture team of Evil, Sho, and Yoshinobu Kanemaru. When we had Taichi making his return, he was off the tour. He took a leave of absence after the turn from Kanemaru, so he missed some of the
broken heart syndrome.
Yes. He missed some of the untelevised events, and people were not expecting him there. But yeah, he made the surprise return here towards the end, which helped Doki get the win over the KOPW champion, Sho.
Yeah, big reaction to Taichi's triumphant return here.
Yeah. So yeah, great response, and Taichi teasing another member to the group.
Yeah, and he also said on the mic, he said, I wasn't just taking a break this week. So very, very cryptic. Chris Charlton was retorting on the mic, like, what does that mean? And it was very clear that Evil was very much unnerved by Taichi's cryptic statement, and that continues to play into the ongoing feud between Just Four Guys / Just Five Guys and House of Torture. So we'll see how that plays out this week.
Yeah. Then the big main event here, we had Kazuchika Okada and Lio Rush defeating Hiromu Takahashi and Tetsuya Naito 20 minutes and 20 seconds.
Yeah, this was a show that was, pretty stereotypical, what you'd expect when you think of your C-level type Road to show, with a few pleasant surprises mixed in. But the main event was kind of next level and sort of outperformed the rest of the show. This is what we would call a banger.
Yeah, it was awesome. And I think the highlights were Lio Rush and Hiromu. And, we've been praising Lio in this current run of New Japan Pro Wrestling. And, there are certain guys, when they get certain promotions, it really brings the best out of them. And I think New Japan brings the best out of Lio Rush every time he's been on tours. Tons of fire, just really motivated. These great, intense sequences, speed through the roof. I mean, and you see the guy in Impact. Yeah, he's been fine in Impact and GCW and stuff in the US, but there's something even more special about him when he gets over to New Japan. Obviously, a super talented guy, but I feel like he just really steps it up another notch when he's in Japan.
Yeah, Lio Rush in New Japan better than Lio Rush in AEW. So
Nihon Rush.
No, yeah, this was really fantastic, and I'm still very much looking forward to Hiromu and Lio Rush. But then, you also have to kind of consider Speedball Mike Bailey is going to be in that match, and he hasn't been in the build at all up to this point.
Yeah, seriously. Yeah, they have kind of imagined Speedball being in the build and Hiromu kind of yelling at Speedball when he's not there. But towards the end of this matchup here, Hiromu got double teamed by Lio and Okada. They were hitting all these double team combos on him, and eventually Okada hit the landslide pile driver, and Lio followed up with the final hour frog splash to get the win over the current junior champion going into the three-way at Ryogoku.
Yeah, there was also I liked just, shortly before that where Lio Rush hit him with the Falcon Arrow, and then he tried to go for the final rush, and Hiromu got his knees up. This was a very entertaining and worthwhile main event on this night. So yeah, if you haven't seen it, check it out. But Lio Rush picking up the very much big and needed win here. He did get on the mic afterwards and basically, said, "Look who's crying now" to Hiromu, and basically said the Korakuen Hall's his home turf, and pretty much made it clear that he's going to be taking home that title come next week. Yeah,
very interesting promo. He's kind of doing this like laughing thing too. It was kind of weird. So I'm not quite sure what direction where he's going with his character, but very fire, passionate promo, and saying he doesn't want Okada being the only one in Chaos that has a title. So,
and even still, as weird as the promo was, I'm less bothered than your average Mike Bailey promo. So,
so that takes us to the following day, October 1st, also in Korakuen Hall. The broadcast started.
A major Korakuen Hall show.
Yes,
major.
This was the go home show for Ryogoku.
The go home show. It's major.
Yeah, and there's a lot of angles on the show. We opened the show up as it was coming on air. Evil and How the Torture were beating up Sonata in the crowd, just ragdolling this man until the rest of Just Four Guys came out to make the save. So kind of a wild. You really don't see this a lot in New Japan.
You never see this in New Japan. So this was very unexpected and kind of gave a sense of unpredictability to the show. And, I like when they do something a little unexpected and just kind of shake things up, because while you might see something like this in a Western promotion all the time, and I'm not, advocating that they do this on the regular in New Japan, every now and again, throwing a little bit of spice like this, it's not a bad thing.
Yeah, it mixes up these Road to Destruction shows, and especially when this one being the last big televised show before Ryogoku next week. This was the quote unquote go home show. So doing this angle here, they've really been pushing this House of Torture, Just Four Guys, Just Five Guys feud, and obviously it's for the world title. So kind of a wild, chaotic way to start the show and get this angle. So that was kind of an interesting start.
Speaking of angles and speaking of things that they don't normally do in New Japan, they continued that trend in the next part of the show, where we opened up with an arm wrestling contest between Tangaloa and Chase Owens, because I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but the Japanese domestic crowd they were flooding the message boards. They were all over X, and they were saying, we need more Tangaloa and Chase Owens. The one match on, Destruction in Ryogoku, that's not enough. We need more. And they said, all right, well, we got you covered. Arm wrestling challenge. And, we were the recipients of being able to see this glorious event.
Yeah, they came out, they had the whole, arm wrestling table gimmick set up, and, it's
just like Over the Top. Sylvester Stallone, baby.
Yeah, and they started it, and Tangaloa immediately defeated Chase Owens, and Chase was blaming, the language barrier. He's like, you said Ichi-ni-san. Like, no, say 1, 2, 3. I don't know Japanese. So
see, the thing is he didn't know what Ichi-ni-san meant, just like the crowd in Seattle last night didn't know what the fuck Ichi-ni-san was at all.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a second. So Chase, blamed the language barrier for why he lost the contest. So they restarted it, and so Chase he's going hard, and he thinks he has Tangaloa, and Tanga's selling it, and then he puts a big smile on his face, and then he's fighting back. Chase is using both arms, and he beats Chase again, and then he does it like 10 more times, and the definitive winner, Tangaloa. But then that led the door open for the Bullet Club War Dogs to come out. Kid, Coughlin, Drilla, Connors, Finley, they all came out and laid waste to Tangaloa.
Yeah, they Pillmanized his arm, which was, the big selling point of the angle. And it makes you wonder if what this is doing is adding a sense of drama to the match that they're supposed to have, where, Tangaloa is going to be trying to overcome the odds and will be fighting with like a cast, like, Cowboy Bob Orton style, or is this a way for them to write off the match and not have to do it at all? And we might just be able to avoid having to see it next week entirely.
Well, Tangaloa did make his way back for the main event. He did take some more damage. We'll get to the main event. He took some more damage in the main event, but I think they're still going to do the match.
Right. I was kind of holding out hope that this was going to make it, so it was a non-issue. If you asked my opinion, arm wrestling challenges are one of those things in pro wrestling that I'd rather just not see, generally speaking. But if you're going to do it, this was, I guess, pretty acceptable comedy. It didn't overstay its welcome.
Right. It was essentially an angle, super short, and led to the Pillmanization of Tangaloa.
Pillmanization.
MJPW asks, is arm wrestling Enochiism?
Maybe. He was a really big fan of Scott Norton, and he was a arm wrestling champion, different style fights. Scott Norton had a few of those, so maybe. But I can't recall them ever having one of these in the past in New Japan that I can think of.
Yeah, neither can I. So Bull Club guys, they beat down Tangaloa, injure the arm, and then the rest of God and Jet Setters come out to make the save, and also that left question in the mind: will Tangaloa be able to compete in the big main event on this show? So then, following that, we had the Chaos team of Tomohiro Ishii and Toru Yano defeating Oleg Olten and Oscar Lube 7 minutes and 30 seconds.
It's weird how Oscar and Bolton Oleg are so big, but to me, Ishii's bigger than both of them. Even though he's not bigger than either of them. He's bigger than both of them.
I don't know, man. When he was in there with Oscar Lube, I'm like, dude, this Lube guy, man, monster.
The way I was watching, I was like, damn, Oscar's got his work cut out for him. He's in there with the dog.
Yeah, this was a fun matchup, man. Oscar, man, he was chopping the crap out of Ishii. Was really fired up here, getting all up in Ishii's face throughout this matchup, but was not able to get the win here. Yeah,
Yano was barely in the match. He let Ishii do almost all the heavy lifting here and pretty much beat both young boys by himself.
Yeah. Yeah, Ishii hit the sliding lariat on Oscar to get the win here. So then following that, we had the team of Henare and Jeff Cobb defeating Hiroshi Tanahashi and Yuto Nakajima 8 minutes and 56 seconds.
Pretty fun matchup. Cobb sort of having to rebound from the loss that he just suffered against Naito. Henare building up to his challenge of the strong openweight championship. And then, Tanahashi's trying to build a little bit of momentum leading into his next never 6-man openweight tag team title defense. Unfortunately, they teamed him up with Yuto Nakashima. So any momentum he wanted to build here, it was not going to happen.
Yeah. Chris Charlton did mention on commentary that Yuto Nakashima is, kind of been Tanahashi's kind of little personal young lion in the dojo, kind of been the one kind of, carrying the bags and taking care of Tanahashi. Of course.
Look at him, look at his build and characteristics, and then think of who were Tanahashi's last two young lion, personal assistants.
Suji and Okan.
Yeah, Suji and Okan, the beefy boys. Like, that's what Tanahashi loves.
Tanahashi loves the beef.
you didn't even, if they had never told me that Yuto Nakashima was his personal young lion, I would have already known that just based off of his, proclivities.
So yeah, Yuto obviously trying to impress the ace here. He tried his best, but Henare took him out with the rampage tackle, that spear, and gets the win here. So following that, we had Shingo Takagi and Yota Tsuji defeating the team of Callum Newman and Great Okan 7 minutes and 24 seconds.
Do you see the vision?
Dude,
the vision.
We've been seeing the vision. We called this like months ago that Shingo and Tsuji are probably going to be teaming in World Tag League. And
they got an incredible finish and everything.
Yeah, what do they call it? The pumping blaster?
I don't know, but it's Shingo hitting his pumping bomber while Yota Tsuji hits his spear. I don't know what the name of his spear is.
His spear's a Gene Blaster.
Oh. I don't know why I didn't know that. That's funny.
So,
the pumping blaster.
Pumping blaster, baby.
That's weird. But they hit that on Newman and picked up the win here. It's very clear that they're going to be strong contenders going into World Tag League at this point.
Yeah. I thought Newman once again looked really great here. Again, super fast, great kicks. Kind of reminds me of a young Fergal Devitt in a way, the way he kind of moves and some of the kicks he does. But yeah, he's looking great, and I think if he keeps it up, man, he's definitely going to be a player for New Japan. So following that, we had Jeff Cobb joining Charlton on the desk for commentary, and then that led into match number 5 in the best of 7 series, and this time it was Team Nagata getting the win here over Team Strong Style.
Yeah, another really, really great match between Narita's team, or Strong Style with Minoru Suzuki, Desperado, and Narita taking on Team Nagata. And, the big thing here was Team Blue Justice. They kind of needed to pick up the win here. Otherwise, they were going to fall to a point where they couldn't maintain, their purpose for even being in the series after this.
Right. And the kind of story here focuses a lot on Master Wato and El Desperado. We know they've had a rivalry kind of going back for a while now, and Desperado just really hates Master Wato. And Wato obviously still kind of trying to prove himself even after winning Super Juniors this year. There's still people kind of doubting him, and he wants to prove himself and really wants to beat El Desperado to prove that he is a top guy in the division. So he was able to do that here, hitting the big Recidamente on Desperado to get the win.
Yeah, Desperado, from about the 7-minute mark on, really focused almost all of his attacks on Wato's leg, hitting him with like leg lariats and damaging the knees. And, he was definitely trying to go for the stretch muffler leg lock. What's he called that? The
Pinche Loco.
Pinche Loco. Or is it the Numero Dos?
Oh, you're right. Pinche Loco is the Angel Wings.
Yeah, and that was pretty much his game plan. But ultimately, Wato was able to hit modified Uranage and then, pinned him kind of out of nowhere to pick up the pinfall victory here. So even though he picked up the win, and it's not the first time he's been able to do that, I can't recall him ever besting Desperado. He kind of just survives him and finds creative ways to pick up victories in multi-man matches.
Yeah, so he's really kind of presented to be on Desperado's level here. So good for Wato, and that brings the series up now to 2-2-1, and so there's 2 more matches left in the series here,
which is kind of weird because the first match, obviously, they had that 30-minute time limit draw. I'm assuming that what's going to happen is because whoever wins the next match would basically put themselves in a predicament where they can't lose, right? So because then if the other team wins the final match, then they're tied. Or if they win 2 times in a row, then it's over. So the math isn't really mathing. I'm thinking what has to happen in this next match for it to even make sense, they have to go to another draw.
Yeah, I'll probably do that unless they're going to end the whole series in a draw and they do an 8th match to.
But even that wouldn't make sense. So they're at 2-2-1 right now. So if one of them picks up a win, then they're putting themselves in a position where one team is ahead going into the final match, and the best they can do is either tie or lose. You know what I mean? They can't. The other team who's down going into the final match can't win. So the only way you can really rectify this, based on my assumption, is they have to go to a draw of some sorts. It might not even be a time limit draw. You know what they probably should do? They should probably do
Double
some sort
DQ.
of a no contest. Everything just falls apart, blah, blah, blah. And then maybe the final match at the pay-per-view, they throw a stipulation on the match of some sort.
Yeah, I can definitely do that because post-match here, you had Suzuki running around like a wild man. He asked a fan for their chair. He had a chair and he was swinging it around, taking people out. So, yeah, they definitely could the next match. Make it super heated, have them, it's brawling all throughout the arena, and the referee throws it out.
That would make a lot more sense to me than anything else. And is the next match, that's not going to make tape, is it?
Yeah, I'm not sure what. Actually, yeah, match number 6 is not going to make tape because we jumped to match 7 for Destruction and Ryogoku.
So I think that would be an easy way for them to be they don't even have to air that match necessarily, but they can just put the news bulletin up they had this match and it fell apart within a few minutes, and now it's leading to us doing blah, 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 Yeah,
and then they walk in 2-2-2, and then, winner takes all.
Or they could do the time limit draw again if that's what they want to do for, the non-televised audience. But I think it would make more sense for them to do a no contest of some sort, or a double count out or a double DQ, and then we get, some sort of stipulation on the final match.
Yeah. So then next matchup, we had the Chaos team of Katsuhiko Okada, Lio Rush, and Yoshihashi. Yoshihashi filling in for Yo on this match as well. They defeated the LJ team of Bushi, Hiromu Takahashi, and Tetsuya Naito.
Yeah, a very good preview match. It is kind of interesting at this point in time to see Okada and Naito on opposite sides where, I don't think we're going to be seeing them anytime soon, but it kind of feels like down the road that we might be going back to that.
Yeah, definitely. Post-match, we had a hilarious thing here where Hiromu's like punching the air thing at Speedball, trying to, show what he's going to do to Speedball Mike Bailey. So that was pretty funny. But yeah, another good preview again. I think Leo and Hiromu were the highlights here of this matchup. So
yeah, it's very clear that like Lio Rush is in Hiromu's head and kind of under his skin here.
Yeah, he's driving Hiromu crazy. So that led us to the semi-main event of the evening. We had the House of Torture Evil Show, Yoshinobu Kanemaru and Yujiro Takahashi defeating just four guys of Doki, Sanada, Taichi, and Taka Michinoku, 3 minutes and 22 seconds.
Pretty bad, but it was short.
Yeah, Evil, he got on the mic, told the crowd that Sanada was not going to be able to wrestle tonight due to the attack at the beginning of the show. But then the rest of Just Four Guys ran in and started the match, brawling, and then Sanada came with them as well. So kind of a wild, kind of crazy brawl to start the matchup until it got back in the ring, and Taichi had the big kind of stare down with Kanemaru, and that's kind of the weak spot for Taichi. That was his boy, man. He didn't want to. He's been having a hard time going at him.
Yeah. And I was kind of hoping Taka would get another pinfall victory here, but I guess not.
Yeah, Kanemaru hits a low blow on Taka, gets the quick roll up, 1, 2, 3. House of Torture wins. And Kanemaru, he's enjoying this House of Torture style. He's got new gear. Apparently, he got a big payday from these guys to jump ship. So.
Yeah, I mean, it would only make sense that, in kayfabe, you make a shift like that, it comes along with the bag. So he secured it. Sanada did get on the mic afterwards, though, and said that, just to be clear, they're going to be just 5 guys again soon. So making it very clear that, as Taichi hinted the day prior, that a new teammate is on his way. Yeah,
lots of speculation. We'll talk a little bit more about that when we preview Ryogoku. But it should be interesting to see who the 5th guy will be. So then the main event, we had a 12-man tag team elimination match with Guerrillas of Destiny, ELP, Hikuleo, Tama Tonga, and Tangaloa teaming up with the Intergalactic Jet Setters, Kevin Knight and Kushida. They defeated the Bullet Club team of Alex Coughlin, Chase Owens, Clark Connors, David Finlay, Drilla Maloney, and Gabe Kidd. 26 minutes and 53 seconds.
As far as like multi-man elimination tag team matches go, I wouldn't say this was the best, but I thought it was pretty solid, and a good preview for the upcoming matches between all these different respective opponents.
Yeah, it was a really fun matchup. We had some Kofiism here with some of the eliminations where ELP, he got thrown over top, but he landed on the guardrail, and then he was trying to use Hikuleo to hop back in, but Clark Connors hit the Jeep flip on him on the outside to make it the floor. And then Kevin Knight also got thrown out, but he somehow got on the stage and then got on Kushida's shoulders to get back in the ring, hit a huge springboard. So kind of a little goofy, yeah, some WWEism there, but it was still a fun matchup. Lots of great action here, interesting eliminations here, and it all came down to Tama Tonga. He was in a 2-on-1 situation with Finlay, and who was the other guy that was in there with Finlay? I think it was no, it wasn't Kid. I think it was Chase. Yeah, it was Chase and Finlay, and then Tama got rid of Chase, and then it came down.
That's right, because Chase hit the package pile driver on Tangaloa.
Yeah. So it came down to Finlay and Tama Tonga, and then at one point the ref was distracted. Gabe Kidd ran and hit the pile driver on Tama Tonga, but Finlay couldn't get the win there. And then eventually Tama was able to hit the gun stun across the rope that sent Finley to the outside, and God got the win.
Yeah. Post-match, Finley ran over, grabbed his belt, and said, you're going to have to fucking kill me to take this, and, held the belt over his head, and Tama Tonga cut an endearing babyface promo, talking about his highs and his lows, and, pretty much just endearing the crowd to him.
Yeah, telling them he loves them and stuff like that. So, fun match in the show here. Question from Rambo and Slam Pigs. I enjoyed the elimination tag main event on Sunday's show. Other than the famous UWF versus NJPW elimination tag, are there any other notable ones you would recommend?
Yeah, I saw this question. I thought it was a great question. So I wanted to recommend a few. I think, in my opinion, I'm sure there's probably some really good ones from like the 90s too, but I feel like the 80s were sort of the heyday of this style of match. But there's a lot of them. Well, a couple things I would recommend if you want to find these on your own. In Google, I'd recommend that you look for the DVD VR. That's Death Valley Driver Video Review. DVD VR, 1980s New Japan. And if you look that up, you can find the old 1980s project that Chris Harrington and all those guys from Pro Wrestling Only and all that did. And you'll find a list of some of the 100 best New Japan matches from the 80s. The other thing you could also do is if you go to Cage Match, you look up Match Guide, you put in the word elimination and then limit the search to New Japan. It'll give you a list of some of the top rated elimination style tag team matches, but I'll give you a few that you guys can look at. So one of the really famous ones, August 19th, 1987, that's Akira Maeda, Kengo Kimura, Riki Choshu, Super Strong Machine, and Tatsumi Fujinami taking on Inoki, Hoshino, Kijimuto, Sakaguchi, and Yoshiaki Fujiwara. There's one from September 12th, 1988. Saito, Kobayashi, Saito, Choshu, and Super Strong Machine taking on Kichi Yamada, Kengo Kimura, Shiro Koshinaka, Tatsumi Fujinami, and Yoshiaki Fujiwara. There's a bunch of other really great ones. The 1986 one that you mentioned, that's the UWF versus New Japan one. That's really famous. That one's really fantastic. And I would say if you're looking for more than just what I recommended, there's quite a few more out there. Maybe look at some of the resources that I just mentioned.
Nice. Well, let's transition now into our preview of Destruction in Ryogoku coming up next Monday, October 9th from Ryogoku Sumo Hall. Show will open up with House of Torture, Sho, Yoshinobu Kanemaru, and Yujiro Takahashi versus Just Five Guys. It'll be Doki, Taichi, and the reveal of the mystery man, the new fifth member of Just Five Guys. And we had a question here from JSK 2002. What would be your best scenario for who the fifth member of J5G is, and what is the worst outcome you can think of?
So I think it would be really, really cool. I think that the name that everyone is hoping that it is they're hoping that it's the return of Uemura, right? That would be really cool. The other name that I think would be super interesting if it was even possible, and I don't know how possible it is, but if it were to be, God, what's wrong with me? I'm forgetting names here. Who just left Noah?
Nakajima.
Yeah, if Nakajima were to be the guy, I think that could be like hypothetically maybe your best case scenario. Worst case scenario, there's another free agent that just hit the market, and that's Sammy Callahan. That would be like your worst case scenario.
No, worst case would be Top Dollar.
That would not happen. That's not even a possibility.
Oh man.
What would you do if it was like Nick Nemeth?
That would be very weird. I mean, it'd be whatever. I mean, Nick Nemeth, aka Dolph Ziggler, is a great wrestler. You know, maybe he'd be motivated. It'd be something different, but I don't know.
Just 5 guys. He's actually not a guy. He's a bro.
Oh man. Yeah, I know a lot of people are thinking it could be Uemura. A question from Death Triangle 720. Do you think if it is Yuya's returning on Monday, would it be too early?
I don't know what do you mean too early? He's been gone for a long time.
Yeah, he's been over here in the States for quite some time on Excursion. I think it's about time this man comes back.
I don't think it's likely, but I would love for it to be Katsuhiko Nakajima.
Yeah, I think that's a name. I know people have kind of speculated him just coming to New Japan in general, but I think, yeah, that would also be kind of a great way to get Nakajima plugged into New Japan if he's coming over, get him in a faction right away and kind of being the new 5th guy.
Like, we didn't break the news last week on the show because we literally, right after we got done recording, the news broke that he was pretty much going to be a free agent. He was leaving. And, he's kind of talking about how he's got interest in working over in the States, maybe for, the big speculation is maybe WWE, maybe AEW. And so everyone is pretty much saying he's not coming to New Japan. And given the current state in the wrestling, industry, that might very well be the case. But we've seen this before. We've seen guys leave Noah and be like, "Oh no, I'm not jumping to New Japan. I'm going to
US. Yeah,
I'm going to the US." And then they go to New Japan. So I'm hoping that's what happens here.
Yeah, falls that Taiji Ishimori playbook.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see who ends up being the new 5th guy, and that'll be the opener for the show. Following that, we'll have the anticipated Tanga Loa versus Chase Owens singles match, and I can't wait to watch Tanga Loa sell his arm throughout this match.
That's what you're excited for? I'm excited for Chase Owens to work the arm. That's what I'm excited for. Fuck a sell. Let's talk about some heat.
I also want to see, the famous Tanga Loa,
He's not going to be able to do that spot because he's going to have to do it with the bad side. It's going to be less effective.
He did it on the September 30th show, and Hanari on commentary was just hilarious. He's like, "Oh man, look at that combo! he's killing him."
It feels like when John Cena unveiled like the 6th move of Doom. And it was that back fist.
Yeah, what was it? The
I don't know.
Something Fury or something, Hidden Fury or something like that.
I don't know. But it just feels like a rib.
Yeah, it does. It's a rib on us.
Yeah.
Then following that, we'll have Bushi, Shingo Takagi, Tetsuya Naito, and Yota Tsuji taking on Callum Newman, Great Okan, Hanare, and Jeff Cobb.
This will be fun, and it'll be good. But this is going to be like the 8th or 9th time we've seen a variation of this match on this tour. Hopefully it's the last time we see something like this for a little while. I get the strong feeling that, this is going to continue to build the potential tag team of Shingo and Yota Tsuji for Tag League. Is there anything else that we could see on the other side? Obviously, Naito is carrying the Wrestle Kingdom contract. Are we expecting any sort of angle to come out of this? I don't see anybody over there that could potentially challenge him or anything. But where is Will Ospreay?
Yeah, obviously Ospreay was in Seattle this weekend for WrestleDream. So I'm not sure. Well, obviously Ospreay has Sabre next for Royal Quest 3.
Right.
So I'm not sure if they could do something there of him and Naito. But yeah, I don't really see anything else there. Also, you could heat up Cobb and Hanare, or Hanare and Okan, whatever the team's going to be for UE for World Tag League. So maybe you have those guys do their double team.
We still have a power struggle coming, right?
Yes, we do. Yeah, November. Yep.
So hypothetically, I mean, it's not outside the realm of possibility that post-match something could potentially pop off. Maybe even if it, not even like a major thing, but a little breadcrumb for whatever Naito's next program might need to be for Power Struggle, just hypothetically.
Yeah. So then following that, we'll have the first title match of the evening, IWGP Junior Heavyweight Tag Team titles on the line. The Bullet Club War Dogs team of Clark Connors and Drilla Maloney will defend against the Intergalactic Jet Setters of Kevin Knight and Kushida.
Was there something that I didn't see it, but I saw people commenting something happened backstage with Clark Connors and Drilla Maloney, and they were talking about, can they coexist? Were they having issues?
Were they saying can Kevin Knight and Kushida coexist?
No, can Clark Connors and Drilla Maloney. I wasn't sure if they were having issues or something backstage.
Yeah, I didn't see any of the backstage commentary or backstage interviews for either of the Road 2 show, so I didn't see any issues between Connors and Maloney. Maybe there was something that happened backstage. I know they were on the losing end, I think, of both those Corkins, so maybe there was some words exchange. I'm not sure.
Okay, gotcha. Maybe I'll have to go back and check that out. I was counting on you to know. We've seen the Intergalactic Jet Setters already hold these titles, even if it was just for a brief period. They could go back to them. We're getting ready to head into the Junior Tag League, but I don't really see a good reason necessarily to put the titles on the Intergalactic Jet Setters, other than the reason that it is the junior titles. They do hot potato them quite a bit. Yeah, we did see a prolonged title reign not too long ago with Catch 2-2, but that's more the exception than the rule. We're used to kind of seeing these titles traded around, so it's very possible that they might go back to Intergalactic Jet Setters for no reason other than that's just what they do. Keep it moving, keep it fresh. But I sort of feel like the better move is just to keep it on Clark Connors and Drill Maloney, give them a little bit of juice leading into the tag tournament, because I don't see Clark Connors and I don't see Kevin Knight and Kushida as necessarily being strong champions going into that tournament. And I think they fit the role of like the last challengers to lose and then go into the tournament, and you kind of know that they're sort of out of the running at that point.
Yeah, or you can kind of do a redemption arc where they lose at defense and then they make it a goal to win Junior Tag League, and they win to get their redemption shot and eventually beat Drilla and Clark.
You could do that, and if you did do that, there would be a little bit more reason to have faith and investment in them as a team at that point, because right now there's not much other than just the fact that they've got a few isolated wins over the champions in various different means. But again, I'm still a little baffled about Kushida's use in this company entirely since his return from excursion, or his long excursion to New York.
Yeah, his vacation up north.
Yeah, and I think he spent a little time in Florida, but yeah, I don't know. It's weird that this is the best utilization they have of him, is putting him in this tag team with Kevin Knight, which I like Kevin Knight, and I think the tag team's cool, but sort of a makeshift tag team, and they haven't done anything else with Kushida, like, at all.
Yeah, it's so weird because when he came back, they kind of threw him right into the junior title mix, and then he got hand, foot, and mouth disease, came back, and then threw him together. Kevin Knight, he's doing this junior tag thing. He's wrestling on Impact. He's wrestling on MLW. Kind of a weird usage of him.
Maybe it's one of those things where like they don't fuck around. Like you get hand, foot, and mouth disease, and they're just like, "Yo, he's dirty." You know, that's okay for the junior titles, but you know, he's not touching that prestigious, you know, IWGP junior title. It's not. It's below him.
So who you think? So you're gonna go with
I think War Dogs. I think War Dogs. I think they make the most sense as like a strong, you know, power junior tag team that's also, you know, bruiser heels going into the tag league. I think that makes more sense.
Yeah. Then after that, we'll have the final match in the best of 7 series between Team Blue Justice, Master Wato, Shota Umino, and Yuji Nagata, and Strong Style, El Sporado, Minoru and Ren Narita.
I think that what this is all basically leading to is the big win for Shota Umino, just based on the fact that up to this point, maybe I'm mistaken, but I don't recall any of these matches focusing on him getting the big win just yet. And he kind of feels like the big star of his team anyways. So I'm assuming, I think that the idea that we kind of threw out there that they're going to wind up doing some sort of gimmick match for the final, I think that that's highly likely. I wouldn't be surprised if this is like a no DQ match, you know?
Yeah.
I think that that's probably, or like a street fight of some sort or something like that. And I'm expecting for Shota Umino to be the one standing tall at the end of it all.
Yeah, and maybe this one will lead to Umino and Nagata and Wato challenging the winners of the Never 6-Man title match.
Oh, yeah. Very, very possible.
So in the following match, we'll have the NJPW Strong Openweight Tag Team title match. The War Dog team of Alex Coughlin and Gabe Kidd will defend those titles against the GOD team of El Fantasmo and Hikuleo.
Wait, you didn't say who you thought was going to win.
Oh, I'm gonna go with Blue Justice.
Now, you said that you thought the winners of this match could potentially challenge for the 6-man titles.
Yeah.
Is it not more likely from that angle that Strong Style should be the winner since they're like a formal unit?
From that side, yes, but you know, there's also the whole story that they've kind of went away from a little bit of the younger guys trying to beat Okada, and you kind of already had Strong Style and Narita try that, so you could switch now to Umino being the one to step up and one to beat Okada.
Oh, I forgot that Strong Style even had that match.
Yeah.
At this point, yeah. Okay. So I guess that kind of emboldens my prediction a little bit more. So now I feel even stronger that it's going to be like Team Nagata.
Yeah, and maybe you even have Umino pull the upset and like pin Ishii to win the 6-man titles eventually.
Okay. Going back to the match that you brought up. So Bull Club War Dogs versus GOD. This one is, I'm still kind of a little bit like on the fence with this one. Like I really like Coughlin and Kidd as a tag team. But I still kind of feel like they haven't given enough spotlight to them as a whole. They've given them some pretty cool opportunities, but they somehow still sort of feel a bit afterthought-ish, which isn't great. Kidd has made it very much known on this most recent string of shows that like he's not a man to be trifled with. Like he's a crazy.
I'm a madman.
Yeah, he's a madman. But I don't know if I'm totally buying the ELP Hikuleo tag team. Even if they put them over, even if they put the titles on them, like they just feel like an oddball pairing to me still.
Yeah, it seems. I mean, ELP and GOD is just really weird.
It doesn't fit to me, other than the fact that they're all foreigners.
Yeah, it's weird. I mean, I would keep the titles on Kidd and Coughlin.
I mean, I'm not like trying to say you shouldn't put far be it for me to be like, yeah, GOD, they're not going to put any asses in seats. Like, it's not like that. But I don't know. The team just feels weird to me. Like they don't feel like a good cohesive fit. At the same time, do I think that both Bullet Club tag teams should be retaining their tag belts on the same night. I kind of get the feeling that of the two matches, this is the one, like, they might just put the titles on Hikuleo and ELP, like, just to do something new.
Yeah, and it's a strong tag team title. If you want to open up Kid and Coughlin for World Tag League and focus on the heavyweight tag team titles like that, and you want to put them in that direction, yeah, getting the belts off of them here could be a good thing for them.
I think Coughlin and Kid, I don't think there's any reason in the world that they shouldn't be pushed as a major top-notch tag team in this company, given the fact that, yes, New Japan has done better in recent years booking and pushing tag teams. It's no secret that they're not a top-end tag team territory, And so for that reason, like one way you can get any act over in short order is to push them to the top of the tag team divisions. I mean, think about it. Just a few years ago, we saw Chase Owens and Bad Luck Fale as one of the top tag teams in the entire industry.
Yeah.
So I don't see. Look at how talented and marketable those two guys are. I don't see any reason that they shouldn't be pushed as the top Gaijin tag team in the entire company. I think that they should be like vying for that honor with TMDK at this point. So yeah, I think they should be pushed heavily in World Tag League. And I think that like a finals berth is not, I think that would be very fitting and probably appropriate. But at the same time, I don't have faith in this company that they're going to do that because they haven't pushed them like that to this point.
Right. Yeah. I think, War Dogs for Suji and Shingo final would be great.
That would be incredible. That would be exciting.
Yeah. Totally fresh. Yeah. Final with two new teams. But yeah, like you mentioned, that they haven't really given these guys the full on push yet to where they're really dominating. Obviously, they've looked good. They're obviously, tearing stuff up with the War Dogs and this new attitude. But yeah, they haven't had that kind of key victory yet, or that's kind of the key kind of thing where it's like, all right, these guys are like the ace tag team.
Well, they've also been off the tour for quite a while. And I don't know if that's because GOD's also been off of the tour as well up until these most recent string of shows. But, I would have liked to seen all of them a bit more leading up to all this. But I'm going to be rooting for Bull Club War Dogs, but I kind of get the weird feeling that they're going to do a title switch here and put the title on ELP and Hikuleo. They gave Hikuleo that push during the G1. He was the guy that won his block, and ELP almost won his block and everything like that. And
yeah, and plus I feel like ELP has really needed a big win since turning face. He really hasn't been able to.
He hasn't had a big one yet.
Yeah, so it just makes, now we talk about it more. Yeah, I think it makes more sense to have ALP and Hikuleo go over here.
It makes sense to me. So I think that's what's happening.
So after that, we'll have the never openweight 6-man tag team title match. Kazuchika Okada, Tomohiro Ishii, and Hiroshi Tanahashi will defend against the Motor City Machine Guns, Alex Shelley and Chris Sabin, and their partner, the Walking Weapon, Josh Alexander.
Sometimes your really deep Puro freaks, like your Shinihan freaks, the ones that are deep in the weeds, they have to find ways to like build narratives around their favorite stars or build narratives around their favorite stories or even title runs, right? And
yeah.
they'll formulate this headcanon of why, Jay White's title run was so blah, 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 or whatever. With these never 6-man tag team titles, ever since they got on this team, you don't got to do any of that. You just got to look at the teams they're facing and the results, and it's very plain as day. They're doing weird shit, and it's cool.
Yeah.
They're facing a lot of different teams in a lot of different situations, and point in case, this one.
Yeah, I think this is how you use your trios titles. You put it on a strong set of guys, a strong set of champions, and then you create some of these like this wacky, I don't even know if wacky is the right word, but it's some of these kind of off the wall trios out of nowhere, like Guns and Josh Alexander, like 3 great wrestlers. Also, the Guns are a great tag team, and throwing Josh Alexander in there. You put together some great trios like this, or the New Japan Dad team they challenged before. Like, there's so many different ways you can go with these titles, and then different teams, different promotions. So their title run's been a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, they're 100 at this point. I'm looking on Cage Match, 153 days in as champions currently at the time of this recording. They defeated Strong Style to win the belts. Then they defended the titles against the Blackpool Combat Club, Claudio, John Moxley, and Shota Umino. That was an incredible match. And then they faced the third generation New Japan dads in Tenzan, Tiger Mask, and Togi Makabe. And now they're taking on a team of, Impact Wrestling standouts. So they went from this kind of group to this kind of group to this kind of group to this kind of group. It's all very different from one another. And it's all been pretty fun and interesting and energetic. I bet you the deal was something like this. Like Okada was like, well, if I'm not going to be in the title picture, we got to find something else cool for me to do. Like, well, we could give you the Never titles. He's like, I'll do it, but I'm picking my opponents.
I want to wrestle my friends from Orlando.
He's like, I want to wrestle these guys from Tony Conlon. I want to wrestle these guys from Impact. And you know what? Let's throw Tenzan a bone. That's how this shit went down. And I'm loving it.
Yeah. And like you mentioned too, there is a little bit of a story element here. Tanahashi losing to Alex Shelley at the Multiverse United 2 show this past August. And like you mentioned earlier, Tanahashi wants to get the victory here. He wants to get the win back over Alex Shelley. So a little bit of story there.
You know what Tanahashi's like? You ever hear about like when gamblers lose and then they like double down to try to win the money back and they just keep losing. They keep going deeper down in the hole.
Yeah.
Like he was like, I have to win the world title this year. And then he loses his world title shot. I have to win the AEW world title to redeem myself. And then he loses that. He's like, the G1, gotta win that shit so I can get back to the pedestal. And then he lost that. He's like, the Impact World title.
I gotta be able to win that, right?
And then he didn't win it. He's like, I gotta beat one of those guys in the 6-man tag team match. He thinks he's going to like climb back up the mountain, but he's just descending like slowly. We're watching it happen.
So sad.
And you can tell his goals are changing in real time.
But yeah, pretty cool to have Josh Alexander in Japan for the first time. He's done some New Japan Strong shows in America, and when they were doing the weekly TV stuff, first time touring for New Japan. This should be a lot of fun. He's a great wrestler. I thought he was great on the Strong stuff. I think he'll be great here.
All three of those guys are fantastic from Impact, the Motor City Machine Guns and Josh Alexander, and we already know how awesome the Chaos / Tanahashi team is. So this is one that I'm really looking forward to. Also, there's the whole thing with Okada where, for those that are not aware, he spent his first excursion, a period of it anyways, in Impact Wrestling. And like they botched his run with their company so badly that it effectively severed the TNA Impact partnership for years and years and years up until just a few years ago. So there's also a little bit of added kayfabe story there too, where it's like, he was in TNA and he hates TNA and now he gets a chance to beat the ass of TNA.
Right. And kind of behind the scenes, Alex Shelley was one of his good friends during that excursion period in Orlando. So kind of good friends with that guy, and I'm sure he's looking forward to wrestling him.
And of any of the pairings that I'm most excited for, it's going to be Josh Alexander and Ishii.
Oh, yes.
Going toe to toe. That's going to be sick.
It's going to be incredible. So yeah, that'd be a fun match. I'm going to go with all the champs retaining here.
I think the champs retain too.
So then following that, we'll have the never openweight title match. David Finlay defending the title against Tama Tonga.
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I'm kind of over the whole Finlay Tama Tonga feud.
Hopefully this is definitive.
Yeah.
Hopefully this is it for them.
Which means Finlay has to win, right?
No, not necessarily. Like, if Tama Tonga wins, then realistically, David Finlay being the leader of the Bullet Club shouldn't be the never champion. He should be aiming for much higher goals, like the US/UK title or the world title. The never title should kind of be like a step beneath him. He should be able to fail up in theory, right?
Yeah.
But I don't know if that's, I don't know. I don't know if they see it that way.
Right. And I just don't know if this is the right time in the calendar year for him to fail up.
Yeah, we're getting to that crunch time where you kind of have to ask yourself, like, where are all these guys going to land come January 4th? So that's another thing to think about. And I kind of think that way when I look at this matchup, and I wonder to myself, what would I like to see either of these guys doing come Wrestle Kingdom time? And while I've given a lot of praise on both of them for their improvements and presentation, I think that most of what they've done post G1 or even during the G1 in some cases has been a little lacking.
Yeah.
And so I'm just not that invested in this, and I feel like we've seen it a bit much. I'm personally indifferent to whoever wins it. I'm really just hoping that the follow-up for both guys is stronger than what this program in and of itself has been so far.
Yeah, because this program's been kind of weird. I think it's due to like their kind of schedule, because a lot of times like Finlay and Tama Tonga go missing from tours for like long periods of time.
Well, the other thing too is, like, Tama Tonga, his entire existence has really been defined by the Bullet Club outside of the small pockets of feuds that he's had with Okada around the G1 seasons. His entire existence has been basically revolving around Bullet Club, whether that was when he was in the Bullet Club, then he was ousted from the Bullet Club, and then he had to get revenge on Jay White. Then he had to face the Good Brothers and Carl Anderson and get his revenge. And then he had to get revenge on David Finlay. And that's kind of been the story of his year. And now you're kind of like, all right, well, if you beat David Finlay, what do you got next? Is there any creative that we can get for the good guy Tama Tonga that has nothing in any way, shape, or form to do with Too Sweet, For Life, Bullet Club, Good Brothers? Can we do something different on any level? Let's do it. Like, I'm ready for him to just not, I don't want him to be involved with Bullet Club in any way, shape, or form. And I would like for David Finlay, as the leader of the Bullet Club, to do some leader type shit. I don't think that he should be involved in a mid-card feud for a mid-card title with Tama Tonga. And that's not even I'm not even saying this in a negative way on both of them. I don't think that this feud does favors for either guy personally. I think that if you're going to make this guy the leader of the Bullet Club, and that's the way you wanted to go, then he needs to be fighting Ospreay, Sabre, Tanahashi, Naito, Okada, people like that, Sonata. Those are the types of guys you need to be having him in there with. And if you don't want to do that, don't make him leader of Bullet Club. But if he's gonna be the leader of Bullet Club, put him in the fucking main event.
Yeah, he needs to be elevated. He's kind of, I feel like he was already kind of past the never title kind of scene, being there so long, and now he's leading a faction. Like, you think they would have tried to jump him up a little bit higher, like you mentioned, in that US/UK scene, or making him a world title challenger. So yeah, I think that with this whole Bullet Club and War Dogs and Finlay takeover, I think to really kind of stamp that approval there, make that really stand out, I think him losing here could be good for that. So that way he can move on and he could face some other really top guys and potentially get a big singles match at Wrestle Kingdom.
The other thing too is that I feel like the Never title has kind of just been a non-important title all year long ever since that Carl Anderson debacle at the end of last year.
Yeah.
Where this was supposed to be, at a certain point, it was envisioned that this would actually kind of replace the IC title and be the number 2 belt in the company. And for a short period, it did sort of feel like that was the case. But, it's fallen beneath that station at this point. And I also would like to see, matches that elevate the title's importance and people to be invested in it again. And I don't feel like this is a match that does that either.
Yeah.
Ultimately, I feel like the best case scenario is Tama Tonga wins, putting a final sealing stamp on his feud so he can have closure and move on and do something un-Bullet Club related. And, I would like for David Finlay to try and rebuild and fail up and do something different and maybe bigger.
Yeah, I think that makes a ton of sense and would be the best thing for Finlay to kind of, for his career growth and his role as Bullet Club leader.
Yeah, because I mean, he could retain the title and go into January 4th as the champion. That's fine, but then you sort of leave Tama Tonga in this place where like he still needs to beat the Bullet Club out of his system or whatever, and then it's like, well, who does David Finlay defend this title against that's going to have any sort of like real importance or value or meaning? And maybe they could set something up between now and then. I don't know, but I'm not sure what that is.
Yeah. So following that, we have the IWGP Junior Heavyweight title 3-way match. Hiromu Takahashi, the champion, defending against Speedball Mike Bailey and the Bad Child Leo Rush.
It's pretty rare when you're looking at a major New Japan pay-per-view where you feel very confident that an undercard match, even the semi-main event, is for sure going to be the top match, because you always sort of have to wonder how the main event is going to perform. But I feel very confident that even if this isn't the match of the night, which it likely will be, it's going to outshine and outperform the main event in stride. So this is the match I'm most looking forward to. Hiromu defending the title against both Speedball Mike Bailey and Leo Rush, two men who both held victories over him during the Best of the Super Juniors this year. Leo Rush has also gotten a big pinfall victory over him just very recently in Road 2 matches. Hiromu still aiming to break the all-time defense record for the IWGP title, although we've heard him get a lot less vocal about that in recent times. So it seems like if there was a time to switch the title, this might be that time.
I'm all in on Leo Rush, man. This guy, he's looked incredible. The tour, he's been on tour, all the preview stuff of him and Hiromu has been great. He's been fired up, motivated. I think that he would be a great option to put the title on, and you get a fresh set of title matches with him.
Yeah, I think all three guys are supremely talented and very entertaining, and some of my favorite, wrestlers going today. But the thing with Mike Bailey is like, there's just been very little interaction or build on the tour with him. You could put the belt on him, but I'd be a little surprised, especially with how active he still currently is with Impact. I don't know what the deal is with Leo Rush. Like, I know he's working with Impact, but it almost kind of feels like he's maybe getting ready to potentially transition to maybe hypothetically being like a New Japan talent is what it kind of feels like. And so there were a lot of people that earlier this year in the early first quarter of the year wanted him to beat Hiromu for the title, and we're sort of expecting it at that point. When he didn't, they're very disappointed. So I could see him being the guy, and I wouldn't be opposed to that whatsoever. I think he's the exact caliber of competitor that you want to see holding that sort of title and being the champion. And that would really give whoever the next challenger is a huge goal to go after for Wrestle Kingdom time. Then again, I know some people don't want to hear this. I still love the idea of Hiromu being the champion that breaks the all-time record. That would be a huge like accomplishment. I would love to see that story still play itself out, but they seem to be dragging their feet on that if that was ever their goal.
Right. Like they really could have gotten a few more offenses in by now to really get close to that.
Yeah, there have been some events where they could have easily like had him defend the title. And then, you look at where he's been recently, it's like he's been to Glade, he's been to Freedoms, he's been to Impact, he's been to CMLL, he's been to All Japan, he's been to Dragon Gate, like those, and he had some pretty significant singles matches in those companies. Those were all opportunities where he could have gone off and defended his title, but he didn't.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I don't know. I feel like Hiromu's probably gonna win, but I'm gonna be rooting for Leo Rush here.
I'm actually expecting Leo Rush to pick up the win here, just based on the way things are going and kind of reading the tea leaves. I think I'm still kind of holding out hope that Hiromu wins, and make no mistake about it, it's not like I'm the biggest Hiromu fan in the world. I really want to be right that we called him, holding the title for for such a super lengthy time and breaking the record. But I'm kind of predicting right now. I think Leo Rush is going to beat him.
Yeah, I mean, they've been giving him a lot. They've really been getting him over. He's been doing great. I think it would make all the sense in the world to put the belt on Leo. And one thing we haven't really seen play out yet, like we mentioned a couple of weeks ago, is this whole kind of heel persona that he's been doing in Impact. And Chris Charlton's been mentioning it on commentary. Like in the U.S. he's been winning underhanded tactics, and then here in Japan, he's been wrestling clean. So I'm wondering if this is a match that kind of flips a switch to him wrestling more heel and winning the title.
Right. And then really you have a question at that point, like where do his allegiances in New Japan lie? He waves the banner for Chaos, but if he starts employing underhanded tactics and working as a heel, that kind of flies in the face of the philosophies of the group. Keep in mind though, there was a time not too long ago where we saw a heel Jay White work as a member of Chaos, and that was a pretty compelling storyline for what's funny is, like, at the time it felt like he was part of that group for a long time, but when you go back and look at it, it was like 6-7 months, 8 months. It wasn't really that lengthy of a time period, but he was a member of Chaos and he was a heel, and it was like very clear the whole time, like, he's a snake in the grass. When are you guys going to like cut the head off this thing and like stamp it out? And it became an unwieldy problem for them. Hypothetically, I could see a very compelling junior story where it's like he's a heel, but he's part of Chaos, but he's a bad guy. And he's not jiving with Yo and all that sort of thing.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of interesting story angles to go at if they decide to do that and kind of have him be a heel in New Japan. Or if not, if they just kind of keep him what he's been doing, and he's just a face in New Japan, I'm fine with that too. I feel like his performances have been really great on this tour, and he looks like a star, talks like a star, wrestles like a star. So I think putting the title on him in either situation would be kind of a great, fresh mix-up. So then the main event of the evening for the IWGP World Heavyweight title, it'll be a lumberjack match. The lumberjacks being members of House of Torture and Just Five Guys. The champion, Sonata, will be defending against Evil.
Yeah. Nothing screams 5-star classic like the words lumberjack.
Like the words evil.
I'm personally really just not looking forward to this, to be honest. And I know that that's not like a that's not like a super original take or anything like that, but it is how I feel. I I'm not a huge fan of Evil. I never have been. Even before his heel turn, I wasn't really gung ho on the guy, but it's gotten exponentially worse ever since he did turn. The matches where I've been entertained by him have been few and far between, and most of the time it's going to be situations where a very um, charismatic and lovable babyface overcomes all of the odds to, beat him. Um, whether that's a Yoshihashi or a Zack Sabre Jr. or an Okada or a Hiromu. Those all kind of like ring out as guys that he's had a few isolated, noteworthy matches where they've been able to overcome him and beat him, and the crowd really got into it and loved it.
Mm-hmm.
Throughout this feud, I know there's history with him and Sonata. They might have some sort of chemistry, but a lot of their matches to me have been lacking ever since the split. I am a fan of Sonata's work, but I don't see Sonata as being an extremely charismatic or charming guy that can rally up and show fire and get the audience behind him. There have been a lot of segments in the lead up to this where he's gotten bested by Evil and bested by House of Torture and has seemed very apathetic and lackadaisical and sort of just there.
Mm-hmm.
And has gotten little to no reaction from the audience in terms of like true concern or sympathy. Maybe having the lumberjacks around might add something, but at the same time, the main thing I don't like about Evil matches are all the House of Torture shenanigans, and this just ensures that that's going to be amplified in a legal way to an even greater extent. And this is all surrounding the top title in the company. And I know that it's the beginning of October, the end of September, and it's kind of a lull period in New Japan. It's not typically a time where you ever expect the title to change hands anyway. So I get that, but this has to be, in my opinion, in a decade, maybe one of the weakest ever since the Wrestle Kingdom leads to January 4th Tokyo Dome period, like starting in 2013. This has got to be on paper the weakest and worst program and title defense of that era. And I'm not looking forward to it, honestly.
Yeah, I'm not looking forward to it either. I guess the one good thing with the Lumberjack match, like the guys will already be out there. Like you know there would be interference regardless. So the guys will already be out there. They'll probably be brawling throughout the match. They'll be trying to stop the just got five guys will be trying to stop how the Torture from cheating and all this stuff. And so it'll be fine. It'll be what it is. But expecting Sonata to win and retain the title here.
Yeah, I expect him to overcome Evil and retain. And maybe I'm off base. Maybe hypothetically, all of this will, this will be one of those situations where we say that the build wasn't what it needed to be, but in a vacuum, the match itself delivered. And hopefully that's the case, because this is going to be, there's a lot going against it. Number one, all the build, all the detracting things that I just said, but then keep in mind, this is like one of their bigger pay-per-views of the year. So it's probably going to be a 4-hour show, right? So it's going to be at the end of, it's going to be at least 3.5 hours of action preceding it. People are going to be tired. And then they're going to have to follow Hiromu and
Speedball and Leo.
Speedball and Leo Rush. And then they're going to have to like go out there and deliver the goods. I don't see it happening. I'm looking right now, and in the history of this company preceding this, there have been 7 lumberjack matches all time. Honestly, most of them have, for the most part, been pretty bad. The one noteworthy exception that really delivered was like Tanahashi and Prince Devitt at Destruction in 2013. That's a really fantastic match. And then very recently we had that lumberjack death match at the end of last year that was New Japan adjacent because it took place at Takataichi Despy Mania between Taichi and Shingo. And when I think of that most recent match, and Dave Meltzer gave it 5 stars, it's probably still a lock to be on our excursion match of the year for 2023. I don't imagine on any level that this match is going to be anywhere near the level of that one.
Yeah, not at all. This match is all going to be about shenanigans. It's going to be, about the fifth guy helping out. So hopefully, the fifth guy is somebody cool like Nakajima or Uemura that's going to be out there to kind of help bring some attention on them. Otherwise, like you mentioned, we've kind of seen the playbook here. We've seen everything that goes into this rivalry and have not been into it at all either. And you're not going to make Evil your champion. I know people are like, this is great heat. The fake T-shirts, the beat downs, the Kanemaru's turn. Yeah, the Kanemaru turn was great, but as a whole, I just think House of Torture just doesn't work for me in New Japan, how they present that. So, especially here in a main event setting like this.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely been some things I liked about the program. I liked the shirt. I liked the Kanemaru turn. I liked the intrigue of a new guy coming in. But none of that screams world title program. That's all mid-card, cannon fodder shit. It's not that far off in certain respects from like when House of Torture were doing the dog kennel matches last year, or this year, whenever that was. And it was sort of like, good, that's where they belong. Like, they're sort of like an undercard act, but we're dealing with it now in the main event with Sonata, who like needs all the help he can get at this point in his title reign. And they're not doing him any favors, and he's not doing himself any favors if we're being honest about it.
He's come off extra flat in this rivalry. There's been a lot of moments for him to get heated and show passion and emotion, and he just hasn't. Like we mentioned last week, this guy's handcuffed up to the ropes, watching his friends get beat down. He's not even trying to like break through, kick his legs, scream, shout, anything. He's just sitting there, blank.
We did see Evil in a lumberjack match on February 13th, 2022 at New Year Golden Series against Tomohiro Ishii, which, like, if you don't remember it, probably for good reason, it wasn't that memorable of a match. So we do have a pretty recent example of what an Evil lumberjack, match for a title looks like. And so I don't expect this match to deviate too far from that template just a year ago.
Yeah. And with there being lumberjacks, that's probably going to be amped up even more. So, yeah.
The other thing too is like, I mean, I can't really point to or think of too many matches between these two guys where I'm like, yeah, they've really like blown it out of the water against one another. And considering how long and storied their team was, and them being in a roster and a stable together, I would have expected at this point for them to have at least one truly, very good to great match against one another, especially since some of those matches have been in high profile spots. And to me, they just don't have the track record of really delivering anyways,
Yeah. I don't understand the thinking here of booking this as your world title program going into Wrestle Kingdom, but it is what it is, and obviously Gato has his method for things, so it's here. It's not, it needs to win, and then I'm thinking also we'll get that Sonata Naito Wrestle Kingdom match, and we also still could get, I know that they're heating up Shingo and Tsuji for World Tag League. World Tag League doesn't start till December, so you could have Shingo challenge Sonata in November at Power Struggle.
Yeah, I mean, right now, that is what I'm wondering. Like, I'm wondering if we're going to just get the big face-off at the end of the night between Naito and Sonata, and that just kind of solidifies that that's where we're heading into January 4th, and then Power Struggle can kind of revolve around one of the other titles, and maybe the world title is just not really on the line and it's not, at the top of the card at that point?
Mm-hmm.
Or are they going to give each one of those guys a final program in November before we get to January 4th?
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what they do and what the post-match angle will be. So some possibilities there, but I mean, overall, I think this is going to be a very fun show. A lot of great title matches here in Ryogoku. We'll get the final of the best of 7 series. So a lot of really exciting stuff on this card, minus the main event.
I sort of feel like, yes, there are some things that I'm looking forward to. Like the junior title match looks really good. I think the Never Openweight 6-man tag team match is going to be very exciting. The best of 7 match should be very good. But there are some other things too where I'm like, I don't know. Like the main event, I'm not overly excited for David Finlay and Tama Tonga. I'm not fully bought in on the idea of the strong openweight tag team title match. So I think it's a bit of a mixed bag for me. And then you, again, Tangaloa versus Chase Owens, enough said. But with the introduction of a new Just 5 Guys member and then some of the stronger matches, I think even though it's a bit of a mixed bag, there should be enough here to where, overall it's going to be a positive show.
Yeah, I agree. So that's going to do it for our preview of Destruction in Ryogoku. This past weekend, we had the AEW WrestleDream show also on October 1st from Seattle, Washington. This show in honor and tribute to New Japan Pro Wrestling founder Antonio Inoki. So we can just kind of run through the results here. At the beginning of the pre-show, there was a little ceremony for Inoki. You had Tony Khan, our good friend Rocky Romero out there, and Inoki's grandsons, all with the red towels, and Tony led the crowd in an each knee sanda, which like you
did he?
Yeah,
he led the crowd in that.
Well,
or did he do that and the crowd stared blankly at him, confused about why he was doing it while he did it?
Correct. He was out there to lead the crowd, but they did not get what he was doing. That was the first time they heard those words. So yeah,
I will say this. One of the things, when I sent out a tweet, when they first announced this show, and one of the things that people online tried to kind of take me to task for is because I used the words borderline. What did I say? Exploitative, right? And part of the reason I said, well, number one, I don't think people understand what the word borderline means. First off, because I did say it was borderline.
Yeah,
but part of the reason I sort of felt like maybe it was a bit exploitative is because it's like, again, Inoki never worked for this company. He's not tied to them in any way. And then they're utilizing his name to sell a pay-per-view or to tie it to a pay-per-view. Seems kind of weird. But at the time, I was unaware that his family would be in attendance and kind of have that sort of stamp of approval. I do think that changes things just a bit. I thought it was a good show of faith to have his grandsons there in attendance and to kind of do that little tribute in the beginning. I thought that was a nice touch. One thing I would say, and Jeremy, I don't know if I read this somewhere. I tried to look more into it. And I couldn't totally corroborate it, but I read somewhere that at this year's G1 finals that New Japan announced that this year's Wrestle Kingdom will be in Inoki's memory. Do you recall seeing anything like that?
I don't remember seeing anything like that. Maybe it was said something on the side kind of thing, but yeah, I don't remember seeing a big official statement about that.
Okay, I'll have to look more into that because I saw photos of something that was also related to Inoki where Okada and Umino and Tanahashi were all in suits doing some sort of presser, but it was like a Tokyo Sport interview, I couldn't understand it because it was all in Japanese.
Yeah.
But one thing I was thinking while they did this was like, granted, I had some criticisms about AEW being the one to do this, but wouldn't it have also kind of been nice if like New Japan, the company that is actually tied to his legacy, for them to be the ones doing something like this? So, I think there's still time if they want to. That would be really, I think, appropriate, be cool. Although they didn't, calling a spade, they did do a lot to remember his, and honor his legacy at the end of last year and beginning of this year. But regardless, I thought that whole thing was very nice. And I do think that changes things just a tad bit to kind of have the family involved and sort of approving of the event, even if I sort of still have a couple small gripes about the overall presentation.
Yeah, I think overall, having the family there, the grandsons and all those, people there were great, and being a part of the ceremony. And it definitely kind of it made things full circle, kind of tied things together, and doing that. And you got the event T-shirt. I think the proceeds went to his family, I think.
The event T-shirt was pretty cool, actually. Like, I'm not going to wear it or buy it because I don't know. I don't like having event shirts for stuff that I wasn't actually at, but if I was there, I probably would have got that shirt.
Yeah. So yeah, great ceremony. Like you mentioned, yeah, New Japan definitely, I feel like, kind of dropped the ball on some kind of presentation or something a part of their shows. And I know like they just had a Korakuens this weekend, but I feel like there's something they could have done to spice those Korakuens up to honor him during this weekend.
During a couple things that were funny though is when they were doing that presentation, Tony Khan like backed up and he hit the table and like the portrait of Inoki like toppled over. Fucking funny. And then during the video packages, they had a few of the talent kind of discuss Inoki and his importance, and like, I'm sorry, like they pretty much half-assed it because honestly, I think the reality is they just don't have very many talents on their roster that know very much or care very much about Antonio Inoki. Like, they had Bryan Danielson say a couple nice things, and then obviously, Eddie Kingston's always down. But then like the third person was like Chris Statlander, and she was like, Inoki, he was an important person. He was a dreamer. It's like she doesn't know.
Yeah.
And then they had no one else, because there's no one else on that roster who's like watched an Inoki match probably like at all. And then again, when they're doing the Ichi Nisan Da, the crowd was like, Nasan, the fuck are we doing? What are you guys talking about?
Yeah, and they put it up on a screen and trying to help the crowd channel on, but it did not work. They
were there to see Swerve versus, Hangman. They're there to see Darby and Christian Cage for the team. They don't give a fuck about it. That crowd was not there they were there to watch Bryan Danielson take on Zack Sabre. They did not give a fuck about no Antonio Inoki. And, this was not a bunch of IGF enthusiasts and shoot style enthusiasts, coming together. Like,
yeah. So that was the opening of the pre-show, and then we had some matches. Athena, Billy Starks, Keith Lee, and Satoshi Kojima defeated the team of Diamante, Mercedes Martinez, and Lee Moriarty and Shane Hayes. My boy Satoshi Kojima was able to hit that big old lariat on Lee Moriarty to get the win here. We had a big Bread Club chance. They don't know about Ichi Nisan Da, but they know about Bread Club.
It was awesome during this match where JR's on the call and he's talking about some of the great Japanese wrestlers that have worked for Mr. Inoki, like the Funks.
Following that, we had Claudio Castagnoli defeating Josh Barnett. Josh Barnett, a disciple of Inoki, kind of a hand-picked guy from Antonio Inoki. So getting some an Inoki trainee, legacy here with him taking on Claudio Castagnoli.
Yeah, and Josh Barnett, a guy that he hasn't really worked with New Japan in a long time. He did a couple brief spots for New Japan Strong, but that's kind of that's like one of those like Rocky things. You get a guy in on the lowdown. And obviously he called a lot of the US shows when he was part of the Access production team for New Japan. But the last time he was working regularly for the company was from 03 to 04. But putting all that aside, I mean, Josh Barnett trained with and under Antonio Inoki and was sort of like the Western strong style representation of Inoki's disciplines, from, all going through his time, like in all these different martial arts companies, whether it was MMA or kickboxing or just straight grappling, BJJ, bare knuckle boxing. Like, he's done it all. Like, and that's one of the things that I know that maybe Josh Barnett isn't everybody's cup of tea. He's not like necessarily even the greatest worker per se.
Mhm.
But what I like about him is like he is this kind of Renaissance guy. He does everything. Like, he's a guy that has his tentacles in all these different worlds of martial arts, and he can kind of like, if you look at his track record, it'll be like this month he did a kickboxing match, then he did bare knuckle, then he won a grappling world championship, and then he worked the Tokyo Dome against Yuji Nagata. Then he won the UFC title. It's like, what the fuck? Like, he's doing all these different things. It's really weird. So I like that about him, and I really love the Bloodsport events that he puts on as well. But I thought the match with Claudio was the best undercard pre-show match. I'd probably go like 3.5. I thought it was very solid for what it was.
Yeah, it was good for what it was. I think the crowd not super familiar with Josh Barnett and his style. So yeah, I mean, from that standpoint, it kind of made the match fall a little flat. But and again, it is what it is. Claudio got the win on Barnett post match. He cuts a promo, telling this 42-year-old kid Claudio that he did a great job and to keep training, and there'll be a rematch, and it's kind of this kind of weird promo of him putting over this young kid.
I think the deal is he was basically just trying to allude at the idea that they might do a rematch at Bloodsport, but he's not a great promo, especially on a live mic like that. So, and I also think he was trying to put him over as a guy that Inoki would have approved of. So I think he was well intentioned, but the delivery was kind of lacking.
Yeah. So then after that, we had Luchasaurus defeating Nick Wayne in short fashion. Then the main event of the pre-show was the AEW World Trios title match as Billy Gunn and the Acclaimed defeated TMDK's Bad Dude Tito, Mikey Nichols, and Shane Haste.
Yeah, this one's also New Japan adjacent. And I got to tell you, I kind of thought this sucked. It's fine because they kind of just brought these guys in to be cannon fodder for the Acclaimed, and I get the Acclaimed are very over, so that's it's all well and good. But when they announced that TMDK were going to be in a trios match for the titles, I was like, oh shit! Like, Bad Dude Tito is going to go out there and do some really cool stuff, and TMDK are going to get to do a couple cool things, and it'll probably be short. But they're gonna get to showcase what they can do and get over a little bit. And they just really didn't. Like, they kind of just got ate up, and it was over very quick. And I don't know. I didn't think it was very impressive and didn't justify what they're capable of.
Yeah, also this match was all about really just kind of getting the Acclaim on the show and getting them over. We were singing the praises of Bad Dude Tito last week, and obviously Haste and Nichols are a very good tag team, but you really didn't get to see any of that. Had they given Bad Dude Tito a chance to go, man, I think fans would have really dug him and he would have gotten over pretty big time. But yeah, a lot of the shine and focus here was on the Acclaimed and Billy Gunn. So yeah, it was kind of disappointing to see just kind of how quickly they got TMDK out of there.
Yeah, and it's not like I expected them to win the AEW Trios titles or anything like that. I'm not even saying it needed to be an especially competitive match either, but I think they should have let them shine a little bit and kind of showcased why TMDK have the reputations they have, or what is it that is sort of brewing under the surface with Bad Dude Tito, why people are so excited about him, and they didn't show any of that.
Yeah.
That part sucks.
Yeah. So then that brought us to the main show. Opened up, we had the ROH World Tag Team Title 2-on-1 handicap match. MJF defeated the Righteous, Dutch, and Vincent. A lot of just MJF stick there. Following that, we had the ROH World Title / NJPW Strong Openweight Title match. The double champion Eddie Kingston defeats Katsuyori Shibata, 10 minutes and 58 seconds.
Yeah. The funny thing here is, like, I'm even wondering how relevant to New Japan this is in any way at this point, because it's like, yeah, Shibata made his name in New Japan and holds that distinction of being connected to them. But, like, earlier this year, we'd heard he signed a contract with them, but then he's working literally all of his dates with AEW and Ring of Honor. And now at the press conference post-show, he was like, someone asked him, like, if he had any kind of contractual obligations to New Japan or if he was going to be tied to AEW. And he's like, if they're willing to make a deal, I'm ready to sign. Like, and Tony's like, I want you to stay forever. And I'm like, does this guy work for New Japan or no? Like, what's,
Yeah, it is super confusing. I mean, the main New Japan tie here is that, it's for the Strong Openweight title, and the winner here would go on to Fighting Spirit Unleashed later this month in Las Vegas. We mentioned earlier about Aaron Hanare wanting a shot at the Strong Openweight title. So, I mean, all signs are pointing towards Kingston versus Hanare.
Another thing that didn't make any sense from a kayfabe perspective, they kept talking about, and I get why they did this, because it's, it's just promoting, you're trying to hype stuff up. But they said that had Katsuyori Shibata won, he would have held both the ROH World Title and the New Japan Strong Openweight Championship, and he could have combined that with the ROH Pure Rules title to create the new Western Triple Crown title. But that doesn't make any sense, because number one, his Pure title is not on the line. Number two, the Pure title is only defended under Pure Rules matches.
Right.
This wasn't a Pure Rules match. So if he was going to combine them, how can you defend them all as a Triple Crown title unless all future matches are going to be Pure Rules matches, or you just get rid of the Pure Rules division and you just amalgamate the Pure Rules title into the other two and just make them all regular? Like, they didn't put any thought into that. And I think that really showed their hand, that it's very clear that they never actually intended to do that, because there's no logic behind what they're saying. They're like, it's going to be the new American Triple Crown. It's like, how? That doesn't make sense. It's a pure title. But
I think it's just, Triple Crown's kind of become one of those kind of buzz word things that you just kind of say. It's like you hear that phrase, so you just try to throw it anywhere you can. And I
think it's also another thing where it's like, oh, Puro, they love Triple Crown. We're gonna, in Japanese wrestling, Triple Crown. It's like, it's an Inoki show. You're talking about the Triple Crown. That's Baba shit. Like, what are you doing?
Well, Kingston won, so
yeah,
Baba.
Yeah, and then you got the Kingston Road cosplay disciple, the guy, wearing black and yellow, dropping people with Tenryu power bombs as his new finish, beating the Strong Style disciple and Katsuyori Shibata, all to honor Antonio Inoki. Doesn't make sense. The match was fine. It wasn't necessarily a top end Strong Style battle like you'd sort of expect, but at the same time, I don't think Shibata's really able to kind of do those sorts of matches. I think at this point, it's more reputation than anything else.
Yeah. So following that, we had the AEW TBS title match. Chris Statlander defeated Julia Hart. Then after that, we had a 4-way for the AEW World Tag Team Title Number Contendership spot. The Young Bucks defeated the Guns, Hook and Orange Cassidy, and the Lucha Brothers. Then we had Swerve Strickland defeating Hangman Adam Page in one of the top matches of the evening. That was a really fun matchup. And then we had Ricky Starks defeating Wheeler Utah. And then Bryan Danielson defeating the NJPW World Television Champion Zack Sabre Jr. 23 minutes and 12 seconds. And I know that is the recommended excursion match of the week. So I don't know if you want to talk about it now or wait till we get to that.
Yeah, we could talk about it now. So before we talk about the match, Jeremy, did you watch the recommended match the recommended match of the week?
Yes, I did.
What were your thoughts on that match and how that played out? And then kind of compare and contrast that with what you saw here.
Yeah, I think there were some similar elements of you can do this, I can do it better kind of thing. But I think the key difference is obviously Zach was way less experienced than what he is now. So it was like back then, well, that was what, 2008? It's like, all right, anything you can do, I can do better. But Brian would always end up kind of overwhelming Zach because he could do it better. And there were some things that Zach would kind of hang in there with, and he was throwing kicks and he was exchanging holds, and he would kind of get the better of Brian every once in a while. But ultimately, Brian would always get back control. Here, it was like, all right, this is a more well-seasoned, 35-year-old, however old Zach is, a guy that's been world travel, one of the best wrestlers in the world. And now he really can kind of go hold for hold with Bryan Danielson. And that's what you got through all the match here. And so, yeah, very similar element there, but just a more mature, more experienced Zach.
Yeah, I went back and I actually rewatched both of their matches preceding this. I watched the one that you watched, and I thought that was very good for what it was. I thought it was very interesting that they, in that first very infamous Triple X match, they fucked up the finish and accidentally pinned Zack Sabre Jr. and had to call an audible on the fly. And Danielson actually ends up salvaging the match and audibling them into a 2 out of 3 falls match. And you can kind of tell from that point that Zach is totally lost, and Danielson guides him through and has him roll him up real quick. And then they go to a final finish, and it's very dramatic. It's very good. And they have a great finish in that match. But the second match that they had in WXW, totally different. And it's actually available on Peacock. So once you're done watching The Office, you can pop in some WXW from Germany and watch Bryan Danielson and Zack Sabre Jr. But it's a very short match, and long story short, 98% of the match in offense, it's just Bryan Danielson killing Zack Sabre Jr. And suddenly out of nowhere, Zack beats him with a roll up, and it's truly Danielson beating his ass for 98% of a 12-minute match. So it's not anywhere near what these two matches were. But I thought that this match was incredible. I truly did. And it's funny. I think a lot of people are going to think that this is completely up my alley, and to some degree it is. But there were some things I thought were kind of missing that I think I needed to kind of put it over to the next level. One thing I noticed, this kind of match, if this match had happened in, say, like 2016 in front of like a diehard Evolve crowd, or in the early 2010s in front of like a Dragon Gate USA crowd, or like in Reseda, every single little fucking thing they did, when you have that smaller type of diehard audience that loves this style of work, they would have been losing their minds and going crazy. And you didn't have as much of that here, because I think that those types of environments, number one, I think when you're working a more technical style, it's in a smaller environment. It's actually easier to gather what's going on as opposed to in a large arena, to kind of gather exactly what's happening, especially when it's fast paced like that. The other thing too is, certain audiences are a bit more educated on the nuances of technical wrestling. And I can't recall very many matches in any major North American company where they were working this sort of British Lancashire style of catch wrestling, worked style in North America that really had these sorts of reactions from the crowd. I don't think the crowd wasn't, I'm not going to say they weren't into it, because I don't think that was the case at all. I think they stuck with it and were very, very into the action. But what I noticed is there was a lot of, like you mentioned, the story of the match was anything you can do, I could do better. And they're both trying to one-upsman each other. So at various points, the one thing that they did that was really smart was they kept doing the stalemate standoff. And we're very used to seeing that. And so even though the crowd didn't know how to show their appreciation of the transitions that they were doing, they would always find a moment to stand off. And I know some people, I read a few reviews, some people didn't like that they went to the well with this too many times, but I think the reason they did it was to work the crowd, because I think they knew the audience wasn't as educated. And so they did this to give the audience a chance to breathe and be like, and clap. And this is different from what I've seen from like Japanese audiences, especially like shoot-based or MMA style audiences. If this type of match was happening there, they would be oohing and ahhing at the like they would be ooh, and like the North American audience doesn't know to do that. Like they're like so wowed that they're like, what the fuck am I seeing? But like,
yeah, I think too a lot of that crowd probably is not familiar with Zack Sabre Jr.'s work, his signature spots, and kind of what his style was. I know normally the AEW crowd is the die-hard kind of wrestling crowd, but there are some things that they don't really know, and so I think a lot of them not really super familiar with Zack Sabre Jr. and kind of all his signature spots. And I think that's probably part of the reason why they weren't super reactive too.
But a few things that I thought were fantastic, there was a lot of people that maybe aren't the biggest fans of this style of wrestling or even Zack Sabre Jr. in general, and have this preconceived notion that it's going to be like a grapple fuck, just a bunch of wrist holds and working of an arm and stuff. And yeah, there was some element of that, but truth be told, this was much faster paced and transitioning than what you would normally see out of other Zack Sabre Jr. matches with guys that can't go on the same level as him. I didn't see them calling very much in the ring. I think very much a lot of this was them just sort of rolling, and basically, I don't mean rolling in the context of like BJJ, but more so in the context of like the way you work on your transitions in a gym in a pro wrestling context, because almost everything they were doing was looking for submissions or looking for pinfalls and transition and finding unique and cool ways to counter one another and transition out of it. They were doing most of it completely based off of reflex and their instinct for that style of wrestling. And it was extreme. I mean, for this kind of crowd, this kind of audience, I think that it's really hard for anybody to have done the high level of work that they were doing and still maintain a grasp of the crowd. I think everything they were doing was very fun and exciting and showy, and also still exciting and fast paced. They didn't sit in any particular holds for too long and kind of bore the crowd. It was very, very, very fast paced in that regard. And then when they did start to kind of like work over body parts, there were reasons for it, because again, Bryan Danielson's coming off of the broken arm. He's got the rod in his arm. And so that sort of became a target for Zack Sabre Jr. And then Bryan Danielson started to, employ dragon screws, and he injured the leg of Zack Sabre Jr. and that kind of became his target. And that was one of those things where like, I didn't know there was one really nasty dragon screw. And I was like, I don't know if that was planned or if that was a botch, or if it was a happy coincidence. Like they planned to botch it, but he overdid it. Like it's hard to tell, but it looked nasty.
Yeah, that dragon screw was nasty. This whole match was excellent. Obviously, the whole story here was trying to figure out who is the best technical wrestler in the world. But then towards the end of the stretch, Zach's biggest downfall has always been the striking game. Even though he has put on some mass over the last couple of years or so, he's not been the proficient striker. And so towards the end here, it was Bryan's striking ability hitting the Basaiku knees twice at the end, what put out Sabre, and Sabre cut a post-match promo and was like, yeah, you chickened out. You had to use knees to beat me. You didn't tap me out. This was supposed to be about technical wrestling. And Bryan cut a promo too and talked about, I don't feel like I'm the best technical wrestler in the world because I had to knock the guy out. I couldn't tap him out. So definitely leaving the door open for a rematch. Sabre says, come to the UK or Japan next time. But yeah, definitely an interesting kind of story there. And yeah, the striking game and the psycho knees leading to the downfall of Zack Sabre.
They did go to the strike exchanges in the latter half of the match. And one thing I did notice was, even though, yes, that is true, that's typically the Achilles heel and downfall of Zack Sabre Jr., he normally kind of wilts and crumbles at the strikes of his opponents. But with Danielson in this match, he wasn't doing so much of that. In fact, he was doing quite a bit of like no selling the shots. And part of the reason why is because Bryan was being forced to utilize his left side as opposed to his right side because of the arm break. And I think that probably emboldened and enabled Zach to kind of weather more of the storm, which was kind of cool and interesting to kind of see him being able to do that. But yeah, ultimately it was the Baisaku knees that took him out. To me, the most compelling moment of the match was when Zach, and I don't even know what that's a lot of his matches. He gets guys in these compromised situations, and I'm like, I don't know. He's got them all tied up. I don't know what the fuck it's called, but he had Danielson in a very compromised position, especially with the arm, and it looked like he might potentially. I mean, we've seen it before where like he's gonna tap a guy out, he has him in the middle of the ring, they're trying to transition out, and he just keeps putting them into a more central location in the middle of the ring, and it's like, damn, they're not getting the ropes. This is looking bad, and he's like wrenching it on. And I thought Danielson was very close to tapping, and then Nigel McGuinness is on the call, and he's like, think of your daughters, just retire now. And it's like, this man is still hating as hard as he possibly can. Like this rivalry is never going to die, and he's standing up in the shot, like he's in the background, like shouting and standing. And then Mox takes it. Mox was on the call, and you know what? I thought Mox was great all night, but there were certain points in the early portion of this match where he was talking too much, so much so that like at a certain point, like Nigel had to be like, take a breath, mate. Like, and I still think he was a positive overall, but there was an early part of the match where I'm like, damn, he's like just dominating the commentary here.
Yeah,
but,
it was more just kind of like the Mox here in a podcast. He's just riffing, he's talking, he's just
ranting, and it's like it's entertaining, but it's like, bro, no one else is talking.
Yeah, it was hilarious, and he's talking about like Danielson reading like tantric sex books and all kind of like weird stuff.
Talking about Danielson likes to work out by walking on all fours and shit.
Yes, but I bet you Bryan wishes he was a monkey.
Yeah,
it was like, what?
But at this point where Nigel's imploring Danielson to tap out, like Mox takes his headset off. He's like, "Fuck that guy! Get to the ropes!" Like, so good. The tail end of the match, Danielson hits him with the Baisaku knee, kicks out, hits him with another one. It's very clear that that's the end. 1, 2, 3, and it's very definitive. And there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not even criticizing it. It's not bad by any means. It was a great finish. But to me personally, for me to go to that next level where I'm like, I see this as an all-time classic. I'm going to give it the 5 stars. There has to be that. It's not just the technical excellence. There has to be that next level of like emotional feeling. You know what I mean? And yeah. I felt it for most of the match, but when it got to the finale, it just kind of came a bit abruptly, and it wasn't bad, but I also don't think I could call this like a match of the year contender. I know it's sitting at like a 9.64 on Cage Match, and there's a lot of people that really love this. I loved it. I'm like 4.5. That's very high.
That's where I am too. 4.5. Like there was like, also it hit that great level of 4.5, but there just wasn't that extra special magic that would push it into a 4 3/4, 5-star matchup.
I know that like from a technical standpoint, it's higher than like maybe what I saw from like Kenny and Will this year, or like Naito and Will, or Naito and Okada. but it didn't have that next level of emotional fan investment, and maybe that is a little bit of the westernization of wrestling for me. Like maybe it is like I need the fire up spot. I need someone to get put down, or I need like the big kick out, something, but like the
Yeah.
but like it never got there. Like it felt like they were leading there and they were about to get there, and then boom, he just puts him out. And that's a great story. And I think that this is something they could build on for the rematch if they ever do it. But and to me, I do think the story was Brian was better because Brian bested him on the ground. He bested him with the strikes. There was no area of the match where Zach was able to get the upper hand on Brian, even after all these years.
Yeah, I mean, there were some points where he would kind of catch him in certain holds, and you think he had him, but yeah, Brian was definitely more kind of the aggressor here, and yeah, I think too that's kind of the atmosphere, like you mentioned earlier, the crowd not really getting into some of the stuff that they were doing towards the beginning of the match really kind of hurt just the potential of the matchup. Like I feel like if this match, say, happened in New Japan, I feel like you mentioned earlier, that the Japanese crowd, they know how to react to these kind of holes, and I feel like there would have been a more of a buzz, and it's kind of like hanging on the edge of every near submission, near fall kind of feeling. Had this match been in Japan, and then it being here in Seattle, again, I don't know, like the Seattle crowd, they didn't really seem like they knew who Zack Sabre Jr. was, but it's not like they're watching all his matches. They don't know his signatures. They don't know that he does a Zack driver. He does a European clutch. Like they weren't popping for some of the signature stuff that Zack does. And that's again because this match, I mean, they've been advertising for a few weeks, but I didn't think they did a great job on AEW TV, like highlighting Zack. Why is Zack facing Danielson? Why is this a dream match? What is the importance? And I know a lot of times the AEW approach is our fans are smart enough to know why, and everybody else can kind of catch up. But
that's not always great promoting when you're just assuming things and you're not actually promoting it. Sometimes you have to put some juice behind it.
Yeah, I think they should have spent more weeks doing some more vignettes, especially building Zack up, showing how great of a technical master he is, and really showing why he's coming after Brian.
Now, I will say this. I don't think it was this is just my opinion. I don't think it was a matter of the fact that the crowd wasn't into it. I think that they were not educated enough to know how to react to it, because I think that they were reacting in their own way across the board. Like otherwise, if they didn't like it or whatever, if they were apathetic, there would be no reaction, or they would have hijacked it or booed or whatever, or just be apathetic. But they were reacting in the ways when they would do the standoffs. They would react big for those, because that's when they knew to take a breath to react. Mm-hmm. They just didn't, like you mentioned, they didn't know a lot of Zack's spots, so they didn't know when to respond to those, and they didn't know, how to respond to some of the other stuff that was happening early on in the match. But when they were given the chance to show appreciation, it was definitely there. I think it was just more of a lack of education. Mm-hmm. And kind of awe. Honestly, I think that they were awed by the style of wrestling match that they were seeing. It honestly, in some ways, it kind of reminds me of some of the closest thing that I think we have seen in North America to this, probably Angle and Benoit in the early 2000s. And I don't think crowds knew how to respond to that when they were doing their, amateur style catch wrestling exchanges in the early parts of their matches either.
Yeah, I don't really remember people like the crowd really going crazy for those sections of the match for Angle and Benoit. So yeah, I think definitely they could have benefited with some vignettes every week, kind of showing Zack and what he's all about, and to help really kind of push this match. And so by the time that they would come, the crowd would kind of know him, know what he does, know what he's all about. But at the end of the day,
one thing I will say is, at the end of the day, regardless of what it felt like watching it live or what the perception was, the buzz is there. It is all over the internet. People loved this match, and so it really, really did help the like profile of Zack Sabre Jr. as well as Bryan Danielson, and I think it's the most talked about match of the evening. It's the one that most like viewers at home seem to have connected with.
Yeah, and we did have a question here from Rambo and Slam Pig. It says ZSJ versus Bryan Danielson at WrestleDream was incredible. If you got to make the pick, would you rather see Danielson against Okada or ZSJ at the Tokyo Dome this year? I would vote for the ZSJ rematch.
Yeah, it's funny he asked this because I was talking to Rich today, and I said this exact thing. Like, yeah, there's a story that hypothetically, I mean, I don't care if Okada gets his win back against Danielson necessarily, but I think that there's a narrative there from a narrative standpoint. You kind of want to see him finish his story like he's Cody Rhodes. But in terms of like the actual delivery of the matches, I mean, to me, if I'm watching Okada versus Bryan again, I'm hoping for them to redeem the perception of the first match. Like, it was good, but he broke his arm. Let's see what they could do when they're fully healthy and everything goes perfectly right, and let's see them have the classic I hope they can have versus if Zach and Bryan wrestle again. I'm like, I already fucking loved it the first time. Let's run it back. It's like me wanting to see Angle and HBK again. It's like, that was so incredible. Let's do it again.
Running that backlash.
I want to see this match again more than I want to see Okada and Danielson.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of want to see what Okada Danielson looks like on a New Japan stage and how the crowd would react to that matchup there. And I feel like it's a higher profile match because it's Okada versus it being Zack Sabre Jr. So I feel like that's something that could be like a big semi-main event. And also right now, Okada doesn't really have anything lined up for the Dome, so that would be a kind of a cool rematch to do. But again, yeah, the Zach doing it, Zach's already said, yeah, we need to do it in the UK or Japan. So having that rematch at Wrestle Kingdom again could be another great attraction. I don't know what you do with the World TV title, but yeah, having these guys go again out on the Dome, I think would be really great. So following that, we had the Don Callis family of Konosuke Takeshita, Sammy Guevara, and Will Ospreay defeating Chris Jericho and the Golden Lovers of Kenny Omega and Kota Ibushi. 22 minutes and 10 seconds. So I'll see our New Japan representation here. Will Ospreay in this matchup here, and Will, as usual, looked really great here. I guess the Don Callis family colors are red and black, so Will had this long red and black. I was like, does this man like steal like Tsuji's gear? What's going on here?
This was on paper supposed to be an all-time RLPW extravaganza of some of the greatest wrestlers in the world today. And the match was fine. It got there, but like, I don't know if it was because they were following Zach and Bryan that they didn't catch on, or if there was something else going on, but like, this didn't feel like an RLPW classic. This was like, this was RLPW zero sugar, zero carbs.
Yeah, honestly, we've seen these guys in the multi-man matchups and just what all 6 of these guys could do. And yeah, I definitely think following Bryan and ZSJ hurt a little bit. And then also too, I feel like it was almost like they were wrestling a house show style version of this match. Like they weren't going fully like balls to the wall. Like if this was like a PWG kind of thing, you would think you'd be seeing all kind of crazy spots. I feel like they really were. It was more kind of a story based match, really focusing in on Sammy and Jericho's relationship and just kind of the whole thing with Callis versus, all right, go out there and try to have a match of the year contender.
Putting all that aside, I mean, I've got I'm almost kind of treating like, and I think both companies are doing the same thing too. I think I'm kind of just compartmentalizing Will Ospreay's involvement in AEW with his involvement with New Japan, because they don't actually seem to overlap at this point or really be connected. And as he's joining different factions and having different gear and kind of characters between the two companies. They're kind of just disconnected to me. And, again, I fully expect him to be leaving New Japan at the end of the year. And so I'm kind of, it's a little bittersweet watching this stuff because it's like this is definitely the genesis of whatever is next for him in AEW. And it's the exit strategy from New Japan as it's playing out in real time.
Right. Like, how often do you see them, like, plug an outsider into a faction, into kind of a key storyline? Like, everything for Will is being set up already for him to be there. Like, he's going to be in the Callis family. He has this feud with Kenny and Jericho. Like, he's going to be a set. You don't need to do, like, vignettes. Like, he's been on so many AEW shows now. The fans, if you didn't already know him, they know him now, and they kind of know his deal. And so, yeah, they have a perfect, Ospreay-sized hole for him on their roster, on their television, when his New Japan deal's up.
One last thing I'll say, I didn't watch the rest of the show. I went to bed after this. It was 11 o'clock at night. I worked the next day, so I was just like, I'm going to go sleep. But so I haven't watched the rest of the show. But, for a show that's honoring Inoki, they put over Will. And on the pre-show, they had Kojima pick up the win. But every other New Japan employed guy or even New Japan adjacent person lost, which is, I'm not saying it's the worst thing in the world. There are some diehard New Japan fans that are really butthurt about this, but it is something, it's worth pointing out. Like, Josh Barnett lost, TMDK lost, Katsuri Shibata lost, Zack Sabre Jr. got beat. And then, even though they're not even part of the company, like, depending on how you see Aussie Open and United Kingdom, they're still throwing up the crowns. They lost. So it's like, damn, New Japan took a mopping. Like, but I guess now New Japan knows how it feels to be ROH.
Yeah, all those years of bullying ROH has come back to bite them. But yeah, following that, you mentioned Aussie Open. They failed to win the AEW World Tag titles against FTR. Honestly, a little bit underwhelmed by this matchup. I didn't think it hit the Royal Quest match they had last year. And I don't know, I feel like it's one of those situations where, like, all right, now you're following Bryan Saber, Ospreay, Omega in a 6-man, and now you're out there. And I just felt like they tried too hard to make it epic, and it just wasn't epic. And I think Cash Wheeler got hurt during the match, and then I think Davis snapped his wrist in the match. So guys were getting hurt, but yeah, definitely I think the Royal Quest match was better.
They gave him 20 minutes to work, which is definitely enough time to have a great match. But, the match they had before was like 43 minutes. so like more than double the time of this one. The other thing too, just gonna throw it out there. Like, I know that they kind of quote unquote rehabbed Aussie Open, but less than 50, like just about 50 days ago, they were jobbing on the pre-show for the Kangaroo Kick. I don't know if that helped their cause here, being the semi-main event at WrestleDream. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah. So then the main event, AEW TNT title best 2 out of 3 falls match. Christian Cage defeated Darby Allin in his hometown. And this all led to the debut of Adam Copeland to AEW. I know Inoki was a big Edge Adam Copeland fan, so
yes,
it had to bring him out here on this show, not honoring Inoki. So it all made sense.
It's all right there in the name, Adam Cope. All right, the Cope is real. I saw some wild stuff on Twitter regarding this. Like, it's crazy. There's some really hurt fans.
I saw that he trademarked the name. He trademarked Cope. I hope he goes by that. That'd be hilarious.
Oh,
here comes the Cope.
any final thoughts before we jump into the news?
Overall, solid show. Not one of the top AEW pay-per-views. of all time, but overall still good. Long show. I'm feeling the effects of staying up and watching the whole show.
Yeah, you're tired on this podcast. Like I'm looking over, you're doing a couple winks and nods.
Yeah, man, I'm struggling. I'm pulling Dave Meltzer. So, when he falls asleep with Brian, sometimes I'm struggling over here.
Well, let's close it out real quick. So the news: MLW, CMLL, and New Japan are working together. CMLL and Forma announced that CMLL has formed an alliance with MLW along with longtime partner New Japan Pro Wrestling. MLW released a joint statement confirming a landmark strategic alliance between the three companies. MLW, they love to announce landmark strategic alliances, so that makes sense.
Yes.
Big news. So, yeah, I don't care.
All I want to say is, Court Bauer, if you want me to watch MLW, you know what you got to do. Show me this partnership's real. Put the strap back on Satoshi Kojima. Let's go.
It's funny you say that because my joke was going to be, I don't care what you do, Court Bauer, I am not watching MLW.
It's funny. I love how it's like, this big New Japan partnership. And so far it's been like Kushida, Suzuki, like all these guys are just like in the US anyway. And then I love like for CMLL, like it's Rocky that they're like, it's been like the main CMLL crossover so far.
Yeah. But you know what? That's different because he's popping business and numbers over there.
Yeah.
Like that's different. And I'm not just saying that because like, we're friends with Rocky or whatever, nothing like that. Like in all sincerity, he's having a major run in CMLL, but like, the shit with like Kushida and like, Suzuki, it's like those guys work GCW and other like indies. It's the same. Are we going to announce a landmark announcement that GCW is partnered with New Japan now? Like it's the same thing.
Yeah.
It's just Court Bauer's just smart enough to know how to like market this shit. He's like, what we could do?
Let's call this a strategic alliance.
Like they don't already have alliances with Impact as well as AEW, whatever.
Right. Yeah.
Anyways, New Japan Battle in the Valley is once again coming to California in 2024. The promotion has announced that the 2024 edition of the event will be held on Saturday, January 13th, and once again take place in San Jose, California. Tickets go on sale Thursday, October 5th, with prices ranging from $30 to $300. There's no matches announced yet, but they will be coming soon. Due to his knee injury, Hiroki Goto will miss the remainder of New Japan's Destruction Tour. Goto has been out of action since suffering an injury on New Japan Destruction in Kobe on September 24th. In an update today, New Japan announced that Goto has sustained damage to his medial collateral ligament. Goto is off the rest of the Destruction Tour. I only got one thing to say. Strip him. Julia successfully defended her title against Amy Saray on yesterday's Stardom show from Korakuen Hall. Hyann appeared via video and issued a challenge to Julia for the NJPW Fighting Spirit Unleashed tour on October 28th. This past Friday, New Japan was on the Extreme Sports channel on Pluto TV in the UK, France, and 35 other countries throughout Europe. Special presentation sees Destruction in Kobe air in full. So if you live in Europe, you might be wanting to watch some Pluto TV. I love Pluto TV. So, I check that out sometimes. That fast channel shit.
Yeah. I know there's like a whole like Impact channel on there.
I watch it for the music videos on like Saturday mornings. Also, I love Tubi. Tubi's got like the best horror films. But Kenta will challenge Chris Sabin for the X Division title at Bound for Glory. That's going to do it for the news. Let's jump into a couple questions here.
Yeah, Barry Wall says, I know as a TV company it makes sense, but with Abima's main owners also owning both New Japan and Noah, is it not a bit odd to also show Raw and SmackDown? I know they don't really have any say, but from New Japan point of view, is this not a bit concerning or slightly disrespectful by a major shareholder?
I don't know how. I don't know what percentage of New Japan's ownership is actually owned by Abima. I know that I think they've got a minority stake. To be honest with you, I could be wrong in that, but I do think they're like a major partner, but I don't know how deep the ownership stake actually goes. In any case, I mean, they're a television channel. They're already showing Noah and New Japan. Now they're showing some WWE. I don't think it's that deep, honestly.
Yeah, I think it's just one of those things. Distribution deal got cut. It ended up being a Bima. But yeah, I don't think there's anything for them to be worried about or any heat that needs to be had.
I'm not a major expert on television trends and everything when it comes to Japan, but we've known for a long time that New Japan has been on Samurai TV. Samurai TV pretty much airs a lot of, if not most, wrestling companies over there as it stands anyways, and so that's not that different from this as far as I can gather.
Yeah. Another question says, I follow both New Japan and to a certain extent Noah, but mainly for Nakajima and Kano, with Nakajima being probably my favorite wrestler active today. Just heard he is done with Noah at the end of September. How likely is it he goes to New Japan? And if so, how would you book him? What faction, if any, is a good fit for him, or does he lead one?
That's a great question. I don't know. I don't know how likely it is because I don't know if you're just looking at pure dollars and cents. I'm sure he can make more money in America working for WWE or AEW as opposed to New Japan at this point in time. But he probably stands the most to gain from a professional standpoint in New Japan. I just think that it's a more natural fit. They're the market leader domestically, and in AEW, it's kind of going to be an uphill battle. Kind of working behind Konosuke Takeshita as well as Kota Ibushi. As some of the more major landmark Japanese talents in that company, and then WWE is a whole different animal. They don't have the best track record with Japanese talent. And for what it's worth, neither at this point does AEW. They haven't really showcased that they've been able to utilize and really get over Japanese talent to like a world title or main event level at this point either. So that's kind of a gamble in and of itself, but that he might want that challenge and he might want that experience and he might want that lucrative opportunity. But I'm hoping he goes to New Japan just because I think he could really use that reinvigoration. I think the company could benefit a lot, especially with some of the exoduses that are probably likely taking place this coming up year. I think Nakajima would be an incredible fit in the company. I don't know where he gets plugged in though, in terms of like alignments.
Yeah, we talked about earlier, potentially could be just 5 guys. I feel like he could fit in LIJ. He kind of has that kind of attitude. I think would fit in well with Naito and company there. But I do think that New Japan would probably be the wisest thing for him. I mean, I don't know how great his English is, and I don't know if he wants to be living in the U.S. Like if he's, all settled in Japan, I think also moving to New Japan would be probably the best thing for him at this time. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, I think there are a couple different factions he can get plugged into, but I think he'll be an asset, like you mentioned, when we're potentially losing Will Ospreay and could maybe Zack Sabre Jr. next year.
I mean, if you are going to absolutely lose either a Will Ospreay or even hypothetically a Zack Sabre Jr., there's going to be open slots for leadership opportunity in both United Empire and Team DK. There's also the possibility that he mentioned where he could come in and form a new faction, and maybe we see a reshuffling of some of these groups once again, which is not always the bad thing that it sounds like it might be.
Yeah. Stale Burger Bun asks, do you think this potential WWE and Noah partnership / relationship / whatever it is will affect NJPW in any way?
I honestly, I don't think that there is a relationship between Noah and WWE. They let Kijimuto work with Shinsuke Nakamura, but that seemed like a quid pro quo sort of thing. They also brought him over and put him into the Hall of Fame as the Great Muta. So I think that was sort of the trade-off there. And the whole thing with them being on a Bima is just like WWE from what I understand, they were on a different channel years ago and they lost their distribution rights and they've been looking for a new TV partner in Japan. And now they found a BIMA. And that's it. Like that's the full extent of it, as far as I could tell. All Japan was on a BIMA for a long time, and they still might be on a BIMA. I think where a lot of this is getting chalked up is because Muto made mention of the idea of a partnership, but it was like a jest, like he was joking. And he kind of like talked about how he'd like to take Triple H out to lunch when he comes to Tokyo down the line. And I think a lot of the like aggregation sites in North America like took that and ran with it, and the fans gave it a whole life of its own. But I don't think there's any sort of actual formal reality to the idea that they're, other than the fact that they're on the same TV channel, but so is New Japan. So, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think it's kind of one of those rumors, kind of like the whole Tony Khan buying New Japan thing, where like one person kind of starts it and it gets totally overblown and everybody starts sharing it. Yeah, I saw some of the comments from Muto, and I don't see how this leads to some big Noah WWE relationship. So yeah, I don't think that's happening, and New Japan has nothing to really worry about there. Last two questions here from Def Triangle 720. First, he says, "What do you think the remaining matches will be at Royal Quest 3?"
Isn't most of the card already announced?
They announced 4 matches. So obviously it's going to be Zach and Will for the IWGP UK title. It's going to be Ishii versus Shingo, first time outside of Japan in their rivalry. And then also it's going to be Tanahashi, Eddie Kingston, and Michael Oku versus Hanare, Jeff Cobb, and TJP. And El Desperado versus Trent Seven.
That sounds like most of a card already.
So that's 5 matches.
Oh, okay. I don't know. I don't know what the rest of the card's going to look like. I mean, it seems very much like we're going to have Rev Pro, on the show, which I think they should be. I think that makes sense that if you're going to have a Royal Quest, that you have interaction from your major partner in the country. But I don't know. I'm not sure what the rest of the card looks like. Any chance that maybe hypothetically this could be a place where they do a IWGP title defense? They've done one before with Suzuki against Okada. I don't know.
I would say yes, but they're doing the Will Zach match for the UK title. I think you want that to main event. So I don't think they would also do a IWGP World Title defense on top of that.
That's actually one thing I did want to bring up, and I forgot to mention. So very interesting story for that match, because you've got Will Ospreay, who's right now like this world beater. He's on a killing streak of defeating all of his major rivals, foes, legends, and people he looks up to. And then you've got Zack Sabre Jr., who is undoubtedly one of the best wrestlers in the world, but every time he's put in a major spot, he seems to falter and not be able to win the big one. And now he's getting put up to the task to try and dethrone Will Ospreay at the height of his power in what's maybe likely unless something changes, probably the last match these two will ever have in the UK. And it's sort of like hard to imagine he beats Will.
Yeah. As far as the rest of Royal Quest, I'm sure we'll see guys like Ricky Knight Jr., Leon Slater, Robbie X, some of those top Rev Pro guys, and then I don't know how they're gonna fit them with New Japan, but yeah, there'll be some cool matches to come. And then this last question: what do you think would be the exciting match for the junior title at Wrestle Kingdom 18? A 4-way?
Possibly. I mean, that's kind of up their alley. So I personally would prefer that they do some sort of singles match, but it depends on how we get there. And I think it's too early to call.
Right. Yeah. It all depends who you're trying to fit on the card. We've kind of seen them over the years kind of alternate between some kind of multi-man match and then a big singles match. So it all depends. I think partly who wins the match next Monday I think if a guy like Leo Rush or Speedball wins, I could definitely see them doing some kind of multi-man matchup to kind of load that match up. But if Hiromu wins, they could find somebody and build a program and do a big singles match. Well, that's it for the questions. Recommended match of the week. We kind of already talked about both the Bryan Danielson versus Zack Sabre Jr. matches from 2008 and from this weekend. Don't really think there's much more to add to that there.
The only thing I thought that was really cool was just to kind of see. Obviously, I think Danielson's just as good today as he was back in 2008.
Oh yeah,
but
I was actually pretty impressed by Zach in 2008.
For only being a 4-year pro, yeah.
Yeah. He had the whole emo hair going.
Bro, he was a straight up emo into that. That hair is ridiculous.
Yeah.
But he was he's not like an athletic marvel today or anything, but like he was so gangly, so unathletic. His strikes were so bad.
Yeah.
His bumping was bad. He was like good for like an indie wrestler.
Right, yeah.
But not like but like to see the advancement, to watch that match and see how he moved and everything, and then to see where he was at, just the other night, it's like, holy shit. Like,
yeah, and pretty quick, he did a suicide dive at one point in that match, and I don't think
he did a suicide dive. I've never seen him do one.
Yeah, it's like, this man was like the most indiest of indie wrestler at the time.
Yeah, that was funny. It was a good match. Make no mistakes about it. But like it's kind of a masterclass quasi carry job from Bryan Danielson at the time, and then that's sort of the match that launched Zach's career. So yeah, it kind of came full circle. I think I have excursion match of the week this week, right?
Yes.
Okay. So I was a little on the fence about this one because I was like, are we counting him? Are we not? But then I looked at the track record and he's worked like more than half of his, year here in New Japan. So I'm going to count it. I'm going with Teton versus Mascara Dorada from CMLL Noche de Champions, Night of the Champions 2023 from September 29th. This currently is sitting at a 9.29 on Cage Match. The highest rated Teton match of the year, even higher than the 5-star rated Teton Wato match from the Best Super Junior Final. So they're calling it the best CMLL match of the year.
Wow. I'm considering there's been a lot of bangers coming out of there this year. That's high praise, so definitely looking forward to checking that out. And then for the recommended match of the week, we got Ryogoku next Monday. We're going to go back to Ryogoku in 2009, the IWGP title on the line. Shinsuke Nakamura taking on Shinjiro Otani on the Chono 25th anniversary show.
Nice. Looking forward to that.
Well, that's going to wrap things up for us here. Next week, we'll be back to review Destruction in Ryogoku. If you enjoyed today's show, please consider making a donation. Visit socialsuplex.com/donate and click on the donate button under the Keeping It Strong Style logo. Make sure to connect with us on social media. On Twitter, the show is at KI Strong Style. Follow me at Jeremy L. Donovan. Follow the network at Social Suplex. Follow us on Facebook. Facebook.com/Social Suplex. On Instagram, we're at Social Suplex. On Reddit, I'm the Pro Black Guy. Josh is Keeping a Strong Style. You can email me, Jeremy at socialsuplex.com. Check out all the other shows that we have here on the Social Suplex Podcast Network. One Nation Radio hosted with Rich Latta and James Boyd. All Things Elite with Floyd Johnson Jr. and Austin Simowitz. And stay tuned for new shows coming soon. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a rating and review. And we will catch you next week on Keeping It Strong Style, the ace of podcasts.
Hit your bum.
Thank you for listening to Keepin' It Strong Style. We'll see you next time.